Hello, I'm Gil Zilka. Welcome back to my channel, Essential Classical Music, where we look at the best recordings of the classical music repertoire. And today we are talking about solo vocal works. We are finally, after more than 2 years of these videos, coming to, really for me, sort of a homecoming, because this is what I do. I'm a vocalist. And it's kind of ironic because I feel like I almost fell into voice by accident. I first started when I was a kid on the piano. I liked Beethoven sonatas, and I was dinking the Moonlight Sonata with one finger, and so I started with piano lessons. Actually, just a few blocks from here, like decades ago, was my first piano teacher. And for listening, I really started with what probably is the case for a lot of people in classical music, the orchestral stuff, the symphonies, the concertos. And then when I was in sixth grade, a friend of mine was in the choir, and they were going to Six Flags, and I was really jealous, and I actually had an opportunity. I actually went to the class on my friend's invitation, and I played the Fur-Elise, which at that time in the mid-'80s was known as the McDonald's song. You can look up that commercial for reference. But anyway, so I played that for the kids, and I actually missed my bus, and my choir director ended up driving me home. And I remember when he said these words. He said, "Gil, have you ever thought about choir?" And in my mind, I was thinking, how do I avoid this? Because it really was the furthest thing from my mind, especially when you're at sixth grade. You know, there's not the soprano, alto, tenor, bass. It's just all real, high child voice. I remember when I joined, I had this little part. The chorus went, "Mama, buy me chocolate," and my part was, "Mama, buy me some lemonade. Mama, buy me some lemonade." So it wasn't at that age the most appealing thing to me, but it was something that I grew to love, and it became my trade. And then when I went to music school later, I actually wanted to be an orchestral conductor. That was my dream. But voice was what I did, and I just kind of fell into it. One of my voice teachers actually said to me that she also had wanted to be a conductor, but then she realized that as a singer, you're doing the same thing that the conductors are doing, especially the phrasing. That's one of the biggest things I think that we can learn from the art of song and singing is how to phrase a line. And what we're focusing on today is specifically solo vocal. Mostly a single voice with piano, sometimes orchestra, sometimes multiple voices with piano or orchestra. The key is that it's not like a chorus, and it's not an opera where you're singing a role and there's a big story. Although certainly you have song cycles, which we'll talk about, which do have stories. But in general, you're not. It's more concert singing. And it's really, I think, one of the hardest genres to get into if you're not already into it. We talked about that with chamber music. That can be the case there as well. And it's ironic because singing is the most elemental type of music there is. You don't need an instrument. You just use your voice. So it's something that I feel lucky in a sense that I, accidentally fell into it, because I'm glad that I didn't end up being someone who really, certainly I love the orchestral stuff and I love piano, but I'm glad that I didn't feel this sort of barrier to vocal music, which I do feel like some people have. So hopefully we can maybe break down that barrier somewhat. When I think of art science, I also think of the classical comedian Anna Russell, who once said, "Oh, leader, for the singer with great artistry and no voice," which of course is a joke, but she was getting at something there, which is that as opposed to opera, where you do need that bass line of the large tone that can fill a hall and sing over an orchestra, you don't necessarily need that as an art singer, or with just, let's call it chamber vocal music, is one way to put it. So that's true. But it's not true that you have no voice. You want the artistry and the musicality, but you want to marry that with also a beautiful voice, a wonderful technique, and also the way you use your voice, the colors and so on that characterize the text. So we'll be talking about that a lot. So with no further ado, let's dive in. As always, I'm going to go alphabetically by composer. And the first composer I'm going to start with is Johann Sebastian Bach and his solo cantatas. Of course, he wrote hundreds of cantatas for chorus with some solo movements. But he also wrote some cantatas that were multi-movement and meant for just a single soloist. And the most popular one of these is number 82, BWV 82, Ich habe genug, meaning I have enough. Which doesn't mean like, I've had it. It sort of does in a way, but what it's really saying is I've reached this point of contentment and I'm ready for death. And it's a very spiritual piece, and it starts with this beautiful melody in the oboe, which then the singer starts with as well. And it's very contemplative for the most part. The middle movement is this really long, slow movement called Schlummert ein, ihr matten Augen. Rest, you weary eyes, or go to sleep, you weary eyes. And then the final movement is where it's sort of like, it almost feels like doing a cannonball. All right, death, I'm ready now. It's a very happy piece, even though it's really about confronting death. But as the tone of the work is, it's I'm ready for this on a sort of a deep spiritual level. My top recommendation for this one is actually a mono version, a very famous classic one, Hans Hotter, with Anthony Bernard conducting the Philharmonia. This is from 1950. It's fairly good mono, and Hotter's voice, this deep bass, fills the speakers so that after a while you really don't notice it as much. It's more noticeable probably in the orchestral accompaniment. But the reason I choose this is it's a very famous recording for a reason. Hotter, of course, was known as Wotan. He had this deep gravitas, this deep bass sound, but very nicely controlled, very very expressive. And I think the main thing is there's this sort of warmth to it, this comforting warmth, this consoling warmth that really goes well with the message of the piece. So it's a really effective version, despite the mono sound. Now, if you do want something in better sound, I recommend this one, actually from a soprano, Lorraine Hunt Lieberson, with Craig Smith conducting the Orchestra of Emmanuel Music. This was recorded in 2002. So it's very good sound. And Lieberson is just very expressive, really musical, really impassioned, but controlled throughout. She had this beautiful, deep tone that is just really gorgeous and really does a great job of expressing the piece as well. So if you want a better sounding recording, this is one you can't go wrong with. Now, going back to lower voice versions, we also have this one, another famous version from 1968, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau with Karl Richter conducting the Munich Bach Orchestra. Fischer-Dieskau was known in the romantic repertoire. We're going to cover that a lot throughout this video, but he reins it in here. It's very nicely controlled. He had that beautiful bedrock of beautiful tone that was always very secure, and he also was very dramatically expressive, and so this is another beautiful version, very well conducted by Richter as well. And then finally for this work, another version from the 60s. This is from 1965. John Shirley Quirk, English baritone. This is with Neville Marriner and the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields. And this is a little bit of a slower version. It's a very calming, controlled version, which goes along again with the kind of the tone of the work. And the main thing I like about this one is just the warmth of it. You come to expect that, of course, from these Academy of St. Martin recordings. Just this beautiful sound with the Decca vintage sound. And Shirley Quirk, it's just a very natural interpretation. His tone is just full and flowing, and I think that also does a great job of expressing this work. So That is also a great version. Now let's talk about a cantata, solo cantata for soprano, or mainly for, actually it is just a soprano. It's very virtuosic. So if you're a soprano who is agile and can do all the hypertechnics, especially in the last movement, the Alleluia, and you also have trumpets at the beginning and the end as well. So the name of this work is Jachtet Gott in allen Landen, BWV 51, Exult in God in every land. So it's a very upbeat work. And as I said, it has a lot of pyrotechnics with the virtuosity for the soprano. There is a sort of more contemplation in the middle movement. And for this one, my top choice is who I dub the Queen of Baroque, if Fischer-Dieskau is the king of Lieder, and that is Emma Kirkby. This is from 1983, good digital sound, John Eliot Gardner conducting the English Baroque soloists, and Kirkby has this just crystalline bell-like tone, but it's also expressive and it's agile. And then Gardner and the English Baroque soloists, they do a wonderful job with this energetic music. It's got a very apt coupling, incidentally, with Bach's Magnificat, which is also a very energetic piece that we'll talk about when we get to choral music. So this, in my opinion, is a can't-miss version of that one. And then I want to talk one more cantata with sacred themes, and that is number 56. Ich will den Kreuzstab gerne tragen. I will gladly carry the cross staff. Kind of a similar theme to number 82 in that you're, again, confronting and ready for death. But in this one, I would say the moods are actually kind of almost flipped. In this one, it's a little bit more animated and dramatic until you get to the end. And then that final movement is the one where you have the repose of death. In fact, it's a chorale, a fairly short, very solemn chorale that ends the work. And for this one, I go back again to Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. This is from 1969, again with Karl Richter and the Bach Munich Orchestra and Chorus. It's really in his wheelhouse dramatically, this work. Very expressive with beautiful tone. And Richter's choir, very beautifully solemn at the end as well. I do want to mention also for Fischer-Dieskau, he does have earlier versions of these works that were in mono, where he's in fresh voice. I think the extra maturity of this recording from the late 60s is why I would recommend this one. But that earlier one is part of a box set with Deutsche Grammophon of his earlier recordings. We're actually going to come to that later, so you might end up wanting to get that in any case. All right, so that is Bach's solo sacred cantatas. Now let's talk about his secular cantatas, starting with BWV 202, the Wedding Cantata. This is a cantata about love and matrimony, domestic bliss, something Bach presumably knew a lot about, popping out, I think it was 20 children. And it's a very sunny, even a sensual work. And for this one, I go back once again to the Queen of Baroque, Emma Kirkby. This is with Christopher Hogwood and the Academy of Ancient Music, recorded in 1996. Excellent sound. Kirkby brings wonderful warmth and musicality, in addition to agility and energy, particularly in that faster movement, sich üben in Lieben, to practice love. So a very devotional work in terms of the love and matrimony. And very well supported by Hogwood as well. Next, I want to talk about number 208, the Hunt Cantata. And this is a work that Bach wrote for a duke who loved hunting. And as such, it uses horns, so to be evocative of the hunt. This one is actually using a quartet of soloists, two sopranos, a tenor, and a bass. And it's sort of a courtly, genial work. It's fairly long, about 40 minutes. And for this one, I recommend another mid-80s digital version, 1985. This is, again, Emma Kirkby on soprano along with Jennifer Smith, as well as Simon Davies, the tenor, and Michael George on bass, with Roy Goodman and the parley of instruments. And this is just impeccable. Just 40 minutes of elegant Baroque bliss, just really gorgeous. One of the most famous movements that's sung by a soprano is actually the theme "Sheep May Safely Graze," so that's one you might recognize. But all the vocalists and the instrumentalists are just impeccably stylish, so you can't go wrong with this one. And then finally, I want to mention one of my favorites, the one I've performed a few times, BWV 211, the Coffee Cantata. This one's actually a comic work about a frustrated father trying to get his daughter to quit coffee, basically. And he finally tricks her into agreeing to give it up by conditioning her having a husband on giving up coffee. But then she fools him back by making it a prerequisite for any suitor that who wants to be her husband, that he must agree that she be allowed to drink coffee. So it's kind of a cute plot. It's really charming music. And for this one, ding, 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 surprise, again, Emma Kirkby. She sounds wonderfully girlish as the daughter. And then David Thomas is the bass who plays the frustrated father. There's a narrator, tenor, sung by Rogers Covey Crump. And this is, again, Christopher Hogwood in the Academy of Ancient Music. This is from 1986. Excellent sound. So a wonderful version of this work. It also comes coupled with another secular cantata, number 212. That's the Peasant Cantata. And there, Kirkby and Thomas portray a farmer and his wife. And that's sort of this light-hearted, dance-like work, really charming as well. So, excellent coupling, excellent recording. All right, so that is Bach. Now let's go to American composer Samuel Barber and his one-movement work, Knoxville Summer of 1915. This is a really beautiful, evocative work, kind of a dreamy atmosphere. It's portraying an idyllic summer evening in childhood, sung by a soprano. So it's with soprano and orchestra. Very beautiful. And for this one, I recommend, first of all, if I can find it here, the American soprano, Leontyne Price. This is recorded in 1968 with Thomas Shippers conducting the New Philharmonia. And it's just really gorgeous. Really well recorded. That full, beautiful voice with her wonderful phrasing, wonderful accompaniment as well. Shippers, if you might remember, I recommended in my orchestral video his orchestral survey with the New York Philharmonic of Barber orchestral music. So he was really well versed in this repertoire. Really, really gorgeous rendition. And incidentally, this disc also includes Price's recording, which was the premiere of the Hermit Songs with Barber at the piano. That's a set of songs based on text from medieval Irish monks. And the recording is live, but her voice comes across pretty well, and that is also sung gorgeously. So a really good coupling. In addition, if you want a newer recording, I also recommend this one from soprano Sylvia McNair, with Yoel Levy conducting the Atlanta Symphony, recorded in 1991, so pretty good, clear Telarc sound. And this is also a really evocative, dreamy version. McNair really sings intimately, beautiful warmth and as well as character that she brings. So this is an excellent version. And then finally, I want to recommend a recording from the dedicee of the work, Eleanor Stieber. It was Stieber who actually commissioned it. This is recorded in 1950, although it's fairly good mono sound, fairly clear, with William Strickland conducting the Dumbarton Oaks Chamber Orchestra. And they sound really wonderful, really colorful. Stieber sings obviously with authority, having commissioned the work. It's very beautiful. It doesn't quite have that childlike simplicity. It's more of an operatic sounding version, but done very musically. And so one I also would not want to be without. In particular, as this includes, first of all, another recording of the Hermit Songs from Leontyne Price with Samuel Barber, but this was done a year later after the premiere, so it's in studio, so a little better sounding. And then the priceless Copland Old American Songs with William Warfield, which we'll discuss later. So a really a wonderful disc overall. All right, so that is Barber. Now we come to Beethoven. Hi, Ludwig. And no offense to Ludwig, I hope I don't offend him when I say this, but you know, we've done all the instrumental genres so far, and every single one, Beethoven is like this giant shadow over everyone. And finally, we come to solo vocal, and he's not quite the giant that he is in those other genres. I'm sorry, Ludwig, but it's really not his fault, because it really wasn't as developed a genre when he came to it, like, for example, compared to symphonies or concertos or string quartets or even piano sonatas. In fact, he really sort of was the pioneer of the song cycle. His song cycle, An die Ferne geliebt, to the distant beloved, was really a new thing. And so, you know, when you had the people following him like Schubert and Schumann and Brahms, they were really carrying on something that in essence he started. His song Adelaide, which sounds like Adelaide in English, which was an early composition which actually was fairly popular, about idealistic love. But really it was this song cycle that he's defined by the An die Ferne geliebt, written towards the beginning of his final period. And it's a song about, or a song cycle about love that's just out of reach. And yes, there is it's been theorized that it was written with the immortal beloved in mind. That might have been the case. Now for this one, I recommend a tenor version, Peter Schreier, with Andras Schiff on piano, recorded in 1994. Excellent sound. And they bring wonderful perception, intelligence, and expression to these works. Schreier might have been a little bit past his prime, but he had such a strong depth to his sound. It was a light, beautiful tenor sound, but also very expressive with nice depth. So it was really well suited to Beethoven. You might recall Schreier was the soloist on one of the most famous Beethoven Ninth recordings, the one with Karajan from the 70s. So excellent version of this cycle. Another one I want to recommend is one from the early part of the century. This is from Gerhard Hösch, a giant of lieder singing in the early part of the 20th century, with Hans Udo Müller on piano, recorded in 1936. It's fairly clear. It's got some like that kind of crackles going on, but you get used to that. With vocal recordings, it's, in my opinion, it's a little easier with a solo vocal recording to tolerate the sound after a while. And Hösch just had this wonderful, warm, deep, lyrical baritone sound. Very passionate musician, very expressive as well as nuanced, and he really digs into this cycle. Very expressive. So this is one I would not want to be without. And then before we leave Beethoven, I want to mention real quick this one. This is from Fritz Wunderlich. And it's just a few songs coupled with his famous Schumann Dichterliebe, recorded in the mid-60s with Hubert Giesen on piano. But the one I really wanted to highlight is the little song I mentioned earlier, Adelaide, that idealistic song. I think my cat did something. You good? Okay. Anyways, It's a song I mentioned earlier, Adelaide, which Wunderlich had this sweet, honeyed tone, which really goes well with the sort of idealistic youthfulness of Adelaide. So that's a version I wanted to highlight. All right, so that is Beethoven. Now we come to Hector Berlioz, the early Romantic French composer, mostly known, of course, for Symphonie Fantastique, as well as his choral works and his operas. He wrote a beautiful song cycle for soprano, Les Nuits d'été, Summer Nights. It's in 4 movements. And the title is actually a title that he gave to it, but it's not like, Knoxville Summer of 1915, where you're idyllically, taking in the summer night. It actually is a cycle about love and the progression of it from youth to loss and then later rejuvenation. It's a very lush, romantic piece, with especially with the orchestra. It was originally on piano, but he orchestrated it, which was a new thing at the time, fairly revolutionary, and just a gorgeous set. And my top recommendation for this one is a classic version from 1963, Régine Crespin, accompanied by Ernest Ansermet and the Orchestra de la Suisse Romande. Really beautiful interpretation. Her voice, it doesn't have that immediate vibrancy. It may be something that you need to get used to, but give it time. There's almost this darkness to it, this almost haunting quality that really goes well with this work. It's a really a beautifully sublime version, really. Just really heart-melting and tender, and beautifully accompanied as well. So this is my top choice. For a slightly newer version in digital sound, I recommend this one, Kyrie Tikhanoua, with Daniel Barenboim conducting the Orchestre de Paris in 1982. And Tikhanoua does have that more sort of vibrancy to her sound, really beautiful sound, very, very secure, and it's a flowing interpretation, very passionate as well as nuanced and beautifully accompanied. So this is one I would also not want to be without. And then finally, I want to recommend a singer we mentioned earlier with Bach, Lorraine Hunt Lieberson. This is with Nicholas McKeegan conducting the Philharmonia Baroque Orchestra. This was recorded live, actually, in the early 90s, although the sound is really not an issue. You can maybe, if you try, just barely hear some little noises here and there, but it's fairly well recorded. And Hunt Lieberson just has had this depth of sound, just oozing with passion, but also controlled. So a very emotive, really a gorgeous version that I would also not want to be without. All right, so that is Berlioz. Now we come to Johannes Brahms. And Brahms, his lieder, which incidentally, if you don't know, lieder is the German word for song. They tend to be his stereotypical kind of warm, very, very long lines, sort of almost with a comforting feeling, much of it. I know from singing Brahms, you have to have good breath support to sustain those long lines. A couple of his famous works, his individual lieder, include Sapphische Ode, which is this slow, evocative love song with syncopated piano chords, that means offbeat piano chords, and also my favorite, Die Mainacht, the May Night, another slow, fairly melodic piece, pretty sad sounding, about wandering loneliness, but really, really gorgeous. And for Brahms, if you're first coming to his lieder, my top recommendation is this recording from the early 80s, Jessie Norman, soprano, with Daniel Barenboim on piano. And Norman sings just with this beautiful depth and warmth, almost like this motherly, comforting tone that is perfect for Brahms. Listen, for example, to her Safisha Ode is just gorgeous, really poignant, as well as the two songs, Opus 91, that are with viola. Just beautiful the way she sustains those long lines. And then another recording from close to the same time period, 1989. This is mezzo Anne-Sophie von Otter with Bengt Forsberg on piano. And it's a good compliment to Norman. She had a little bit of a lighter voice, but very agile. For example, the recording starts with the Zigeunerlieder, which are the gypsy songs, and wonderful character and energy in those, as well as, for example, the Vergeblich Ständchen, which is the vain serenade, this kind of light, playful dialogue between two lovers. So she was wonderful in those, but she also had a beautifully refined tone as well, and beautiful phrasing. For example, in the famous lullaby, the Brahms lullaby, in the German, it's called Wiegenlied, beautifully tender in that, and very well recorded. So a good compliment to Norman. And then a couple of discs I want to mention where it's actually a few Brahms songs that come in a larger program, and this one is from Janet Baker. This accompanies her Schumann Frauenliebe und Leben, which we'll discuss later. These were recorded in 1965 with Martin Issep on piano. Just a few songs, but Baker possessed just this wonderful musicality and warmth and heart, and very touching and poignant. So I think she really is essential also for if you're coming new to Brahms, especially if you want to hear the Schumann, for example. A really beautiful version of Die Mainacht. And then a little older recording, which also comes with a larger Schumann work, Axel Schütz, with Gerald Moore on piano from 1946. This is with his Schumann Dichterliebe. This one also includes Die Mainacht, and it's gorgeous. Schütz had this kind of like Fritz Wunderlich, this sweet, honeyed tenor tone, very heartfelt and naturally expressive. So that's a gorgeous version of even just a few songs, but I wanted to at least point it out. Okay, so those are recordings of Brahms' individual lieder. You can also find them with his song cycles. His most famous song cycle is Vier Ernste Gesang, the four serious songs. And as you would imagine from that title, it's a very grim set of songs, actually. It's a set of four songs, last around 20 minutes. So it's a little bit easier to dip your feet into than some song cycles. It was written in his last year of life, so yes, death was on his mind. His dear friend Clara Schumann was also gravely ill. And even though it's a depressing topic, it still has that Brahmsian warmth. So there's sort of this feeling of comfort as well, especially in the final song. It's sort of more softly consoling. And for this one, I go back to a recording that's coupled with my top choice for Ich habe genug of the Bach cantata, Hans Hotter, recorded in 1951 with Gerald Moore on piano. And Hotter, again, had that deep bass, that gravitas that really goes well with the tone of this work. In the second song, there's a line, Da lobt ich die Toten, wherefore I praised the dead. And he just has that low note that's just, it's just sort of menacing in a way, but really goes well with the character of the work. But he could also sing very softly and poignantly, for example, in the final song, in that consoling passage. So this is really a classic version that I would not want to be without. Another version from that same era that I want to recommend is one of my favorite singers, the alto Kathleen Ferrier, British contralto. This was recorded in 1950 with John Newmark on piano. And again, these are mono, but with solo voice, especially with piano, you don't really notice it after a while. And Ferrier, it's not as grim as the Harter version, maybe more on the consoling side, you might say. And she just brought her stereotypical heartfelt poetry and sensitivity. Her deep alto tone that was always channeled towards communicating the meaning of the text. Really beautiful version. I also want to recommend for her, these Ferrier recordings are kind of spread around. There is I think it was like a 10 CD box set that was once put out. Some of these come out of that. But I don't know if it's here or on another disc that she has this beautiful version of Safische Ode. Yeah, this one here. With Phyllis Spur on piano from the late 40s. And that's just also beautifully and poignantly done, wonderfully phrased. And then, before leaving this song cycle, I want to mention another great singer. We're kind of spoiled for riches with this song cycle, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. And this is actually a live recording from Salzburg with Gerald Moore on piano from 1958, when he was really at his peak vocally. And it's pretty good sounding. You don't notice after a while. And live leader recordings, live song recitals, I've done them myself, so I can say that there's a certain intensity to them. You're just up there. It's just you and a group of people, and it can be a really intimate affair. And in this case, I think his interpretation of these songs is really poignant. Of course, he's known for his beautiful sound, and it sounds gorgeous here, and the dramatic angst that he brings. But there's also this wonderful hushed poignancy here. And he's able to float those high notes with that security. So a really beautiful recital that also includes individual Brahms songs. One of my favorites, Es träumte mir, I dreamed that you were dear to me, with this beautiful, evocative piano accompaniment. That's really gorgeous as well. I also want to recommend for Fischer-Dieskau this earlier recording, which is a studio recording. So even though mono, it sounds a little bit more clear. This one is from 1949 with Herta Klust on piano. And it's part of this box set of early Deutsche Grammophon recordings that I'm going to return to a lot. So it's something that obviously I consider a good investment if you love art song and Fischer-Dieskau. And he brings those same qualities of intensity, really probing and floating those beautiful high baritone notes. It's maybe doesn't have quite the maturity, the interpretation of the later one, but it's still pretty good for a guy who was still in his 20s when this was recorded. And of course, it's got the benefit of being in studio, so a little bit more clear. And actually, I'm not going to leave this. I'm going to stick with this one for the next song cycle. Not as well known as the four series songs, but Die schöne Magellan. This one is Schubert length, and by that I mean it's roughly an hour long, so it's a little bit heavier sledding. This was an earlier cycle that's based on sort of this legend. It's really a love story between a princess and a count, and it's a really dynamic work. Goes between the dramatic and even the heroic, and then more towards the end is when you get the sweetness of consummated love. So Fischer-Dieskau he really championed this work throughout his career. There's lots of live recordings, including some with Sviatoslav Richter, which are really good. I really like this studio version from 1957 with Jörg Demos. Very clearly recorded. His sound was just beautiful, and it was dramatic, but it wasn't overly done. He controls it very well, and then that beautifully controlled high sweet baritone that he brings towards the end of the cycle is really unmissable as well. All right, so that is Brahms' Lieder. And I'm going to finish with Brahms with one more work that I think it's actually technically classified as a choral work, but it features the singer front and center, so I'm going to consider it part of our solo vocal survey. And that is the Alto Rhapsody, which is for alto and male chorus, which comes at the end, and orchestra. And this is a work that was written right around the same time as the German Requiem. It's a religious work. The protagonist is sort of confronting their own mortality, and they're sort of going through this wandering loneliness that is a typical theme in much of Brahms, but they find at the end this spiritual absolution, and that's where the male chorus comes in. So this was obviously a very personal work for Brahms, a very spiritual one, and my top choice for this one is from the early 60s, the alto Christa Ludwig with Otto Klemperer and the Philharmonia and the orchestra and chorus. A really classic version. Ludwig with this deep, expressive mezzo voice, really perfect for the work. Beautifully phrased, wonderfully supported by Klemperer, who of course is legendary for his Brahms, wonderful sound quality as well. Incidentally, this single disc is coupled with the Klemperer Second Symphony, which is my top choice for that work. So this is kind of a slam dunk if you're looking at single discs. But you can certainly get it in other couplings, including the Klemperer Brahms box set as well. However, I also have to mention, again, for Brahms, Kathleen Ferrier. Is this the right disc? Yes, it is. This is the 1947 recording she made with Clemens Krauss conducting the London Philharmonic Orchestra and Chorus. And this one's not as well recorded. There's a little bit of hiss, but you get used to that and you can hear it fairly clearly. And this one is just beautifully poignant. She was so dramatically dynamic, expressive, and nuanced. Just really poignant in the way she expresses the text. And then that male chorus comes in at the end. They don't sound as full and secure as the Philharmonia, but they match Ferrier's heartfelt expression. So this is one I would not want to be without it either. All right, so that is Brahms. Now we come to Benjamin Britten, 20th century English composer, and his masterpiece of solo vocal works, one of the great solo vocal works, the Serenade for Tenor, Horn, and Strings. This is a set of songs that is evocative of the night, the sort of mystery of the night, and it's very still and ethereal, really beautiful. It features a horn, and it was actually commissioned by the great English horn player Dennis Brain, who actually premiered the work, as did Benjamin Britten's real-life partner, the tenor Peter Pears. And my top recommendation for this one is the later recording that they made in stereo in 1963. And Brain had passed on by then, so Barry Tuckwell, the great Australian horn player, ably took his place. And this is just a gorgeous recording, really sumptuously recorded, very ethereal, obvious authority that both Pears and Britten had, the care and attention they put with the text and the communication of each song. So it's really unmissable. Particularly, this recording comes with two other song cycles that Britten wrote. One is Les Illuminations, which is based on French text. It's sort of a surrealist commentary on society. And then a Nocturne, which this is another depiction of the night, but it's sort of sleep and darkness, and it's not as ethereal. It's more kind of spooky, actually. And both those works, Pears and Britten, are likewise authoritative and beautifully recorded. I do However, also want to mention the premiere that I talked about earlier. This is with Dennis Brain and Peter Pierce and Britten conducting the Boyd Neal Orchestra in 1944. It's actually fairly clear sound for 1944. It just doesn't have that fullness, and it doesn't have that ethereal atmosphere that you have with the later recording, but there is a particular intensity, I would say, to this earlier version. They bring out the dramatic elements a little bit more, so I think this makes an excellent supplement as well. And then one more recording I want to mention, a newer one in digital sound. Really beautiful. This is from 1991, I believe, with Martin Hill as the tenor, Frank Lloyd is the horn player, and then Richard Hickox conducting the City of London Sinfonia. Beautifully ethereal version. Hill sang with this light, beautiful tone that perfectly went with the work, and then the warmth of the London Symphonia strings really they do a great job as well. So this is another version I would not want to be without. All right, so that is Britten. Now let's move to Joseph Canteloube, a French composer and musicologist who collected folk songs from the central French Auvergne region and put them together and added orchestration with the soprano singer. It's called Chants d'Auvergne, Songs of the Auvergne. Really beautifully evocative and characterful. The most famous probably is the Bolero, which is the shepherd's song. And for example, you have here this sort of fluttering oboe. So the instruments are often used to evoke scenes of the countryside. And my top choice for this one is a classic version from the early 60s. The Israeli singer Netanya Darath with Pierre Delaroche, and I think the orchestra, I don't think had a name. I think it might have been just a collection of musicians, but they play beautifully with wonderful character. But Darath just sounds like these songs were just composed for her. She has this lightness and warmth, beautiful tone, but she also sings with this simplicity that really seems perfect for the charm of these works. Really beautiful character as well. For example, listen to the way she sings the Brezerola, which is the lullaby. It just sounds so soothing in her voice, just really gorgeous. And then I also want to recommend, this is not a complete collection, but it comes with some really good couplings. This is a selection of songs from Anna Moffo with Leopold Stokowski and the American Symphony, recorded in 1964, fairly good sound. And Moffo had a little bit of a larger sound than Darath, so it doesn't have that sort of simplicity, but just ravishingly phrased, really beautiful and nuanced as well. And then Stokowski accompanying a singer. I mean, you know, the way he conducted, really flexible. So these are also gorgeous versions. And the couplings are with the Rachmaninoff Vocalese and Villa-Lobos Bachianas Brasileiros No. 5. So it's really a wonderful disc in terms of just overall. So you're probably going to want it regardless. All right, so that is Canteloube. I want to real quickly go back to an earlier disc I mentioned, this disc of Barber with the original dedicate, Eleanor Stieber, for the Knoxville Summer of 1915. It also has Aaron Copland's Old American Songs for baritone or bass and piano. Wonderfully characterful songs based on American folk song. The bass here is William Warfield, and he's accompanied by Aaron Copland on the piano. Early 50s Sony sound, but it's pretty clear and good. Nice deep richness from Warfield. These songs are really familiar, like Simple Gifts, At the River, The Boatman's Dance, I Bought Me a Cat, Ching-a-ring-a-ring ching-chaw. So it's really charming and a lot of it lighthearted, but really wonderful. All right, so that's Copland. Now we move finally to a French composer, the chanson, which means songs, or they're sometimes also called French melodies. The first composer we're going to discuss is Claude Debussy, the turn of the century impressionist composer, and his song style does typify the French style, which is it's not as hard and serious. It's got this more dreamy, sensuous, atmospheric quality to it. And then with Debussy, he wrote this more chromatic, advanced style, which kind of adds to that dreamy element. For example, there is the song cycle Fête Galante, which those were these aristocratic garden parties. So it's kind of a light-hearted subject matter. He's depicting the dialogue and the atmosphere, but he does it in this sort of subtextual manner. So it's kind of like going beneath the surface. And then one of his most famous songs, I actually remember singing this for solo and ensemble contest back in high school, Romance. Or by the title, which is the first words of the piece, l'âme évaporée et souffrante, the spent and wandering soul. So it's about wistful love, very, very dreamy sounding as well. And for this, I first want to mention the king of chanson. If Fischer-Dieskau was the king of lieder, Gérard Souzay, roughly contemporaneous to Fischer-Dieskau, was the king of chanson. This is from 1961, fairly good stereo sound, with his favorite accompanist Dalton Baldwin, and just a gorgeous disc. Souzay was just immersed in the style, very, very sensuous, a beautiful line that he sang with, and a gorgeous tone, and really characterful. So if you're new to chanson, you really cannot go wrong with Souzay. And then I also want to mention, first of all, I want to mention another set of songs called Chanson de Bilitis, or it's Bilitis. I'm not sure if the S is pronounced at the end, but the Bilitis is actually a sort of a made-up Greek character, mythical Greek character, and really the set of songs it's very sensual and even erotic. And for this one, I go back to this disc, the Les Nuits d'été, the Berlioz cycle with Régine Crespin. And in this set of Debussy songs, she's accompanied by John Wustman in 1967. And she really gets that style, this really kind of sultry style, very, very dreamy and evocative and wistful. So really gorgeous. And you're going to want this anyway for the Berlioz. And then before leaving Debussy, I want to mention this singer, English singer, Maggie Tate, who was known actually for her interpretation of French song. Very immersed in the style, this beautiful high bell-like soprano sound. She was a little past her prime here. This was recorded in the 40s, featuring Gerald Moore on piano. I'm not sure if there were some others as well, but he was like at least most of them. And Tate actually knew Debussy. She came to Paris in her teens in the early part of the century, and she actually learned the part of Melisande in Debussy's Péléas et Mélisande and studied it with the composer. So she obviously was well immersed in Debussy, and really was an authority in general on French song. This set on EMI, incidentally, includes a lot of other French composers as well. So this is one that I'll be returning to. Fairly good sound quality, and her bell-like tone, it gets through the crackles so that you don't really think about it anymore. But before leaving Tate, I also want to mention this. Now, so this is Péléas et Mélisande, not with Tate. She was a little old by this time, but she does on this coupling sing the two cycles I mentioned, Chanson de Bilitis and Fête Galante, with Alfred Cortot on piano. And both of those artists really dig into the music. This was recorded in the mid-30s, so her voice was actually in a little bit better shape then. So that's also a recording that you're going to want to hear if you like Debussy. All right, next we come to Edward Elgar, and a song cycle he wrote around the turn of the century called Sea Pictures, based on poems by English poets, and as you would guess, it's about the sea. It has that Elgarian English nobility throughout. It also ends quite heroically, especially the final song. I also like the fourth song, which has this sort of mellow tune against these syncopated offbeat chords in the orchestra. So this is a gorgeous cycle. And my top choice for this one is the classic version. Dame Janet Baker with Sir John Barbaroli and the London Symphony in 1965, coupled with that iconic version of the cello concerto with Jacqueline Dupre. And Baker seems like the obvious choice, but once you listen to it, you're like, yeah. She brings that nobility, that beautiful tone, beautiful phrasing. She's just in her peak voice here, and also really brings it in those louder parts at the end of like the third song, and especially the fifth song. Not often that you hear an alto ring this high note to end a piece, but you get that here very operatically, and Baker just nails it. And then Barbaroli, he's as iconic as you get when you get to Elgar's music. Incidentally, you can also get this in a larger box set of Barbaroli's Elgar. So either way, but this coupling is certainly the proverbial classic. All right, now we come to, we're going to talk about Schubert later. He was the king of German lieder. Really, the king of French chanson was Gabriel Fauré. Wrote a ton of them, and they're just gorgeous. Again, that style of sort of dreamy evocation, very very sensual and evocative. With Fauré, it's sort of this mellowness to it as well. It's sort of, again, a contrast with the more dramatic, stark German lead. Some of his famous songs include Après un rêve, After a Dream, and this is one where the poet is having this really intense romantic dream, and then he awakens and he's like, no, take me back. And then Clair de Lune, Moonlight, which is this song about love and sadness, and it's very gentle, very very typical of Fauré, with this gorgeous gentle piano part. Also En Sourdine, Muted, another song about love that's also sort of very very mellow and typical of Fauré style. And then some song cycles. One is La Bonne Chanson, the good song. And this one was dedicated to a soprano named Emma Bardac, who Fauré was in love with. I think it was around like the 1890s. She was interesting. She was married to a banker at the time. And then she ended up falling in love with Claude Debussy, and his marriage broke up, and her marriage broke up, and they ended up together, and sort of caused this, social scandal in Paris. Anyways, so this cycle was dedicated to her, and it's a very happy cycle about rapturous love and the consummation of love. And then there's a later cycle called L'Horizon Chimérique, the illusory horizon, where the poet goes out to sea in search of fulfillment, but can never quite find it. That's the illusion of the horizon. And for Debussy, Fauré, I go back again to the singer I mentioned for Debussy, Gérard Souzet. This was recorded in the early 50s with Jacqueline Bonneau on piano, and this is really a classic disc. I would consider this, if you're new to chanson, this is the one that you're maybe want to sample first if you want to get your feet wet. He sings with just this brooding passion, elegant phrasing, beautiful tone. There's a really nice glow to his sound in this mono deco recording. So the recording quality is really not an issue. It's got the individual songs I mentioned. It's also got L'Horizon Chimérique, as well as some songs from Chanson, another French composer. So really, really wonderful disc. If you want something a little bit more comprehensive for Fauré, as well as Chanson in general, in fact, this set, I'm going to keep coming back to this one. This is a Philips set of recordings from the 60s with Dalton Baldwin accompanying. And Suzé was still in fabulous voice, a little better recorded here, more clear sound, that beautiful tone, the care and attention to the text. This does include La Bonne Chanson, for example, sung very passionately. It also includes a song Les Berceaux, the Cradles. This is one where the piano evokes the rocking cradles as the women and the children are left behind as the men sail off on their ships. So it's kind of this sad piece. And then also a set of songs, Mirage. I know this from my own recitals. It's a little bit more difficult in terms of the chromaticism and the shifting chords. It's more of a impressionistic, evocative work. Really, really beautiful set. So this is from if you're really wanting to not just get your feet wet, but really delve into Chanson. We're going to keep coming back to this one because this includes Poulenc, Ravel, Duparc, Gounod, Chabret, Bizet, Franck. So it really, really, and with Suzé in his prime, really recorded well. So you can't go wrong. I also want to mention another set of Suzé in Fauré from the 70s. Not quite as good voice in this one, but it's more comprehensive in terms of Fauré. And it also includes the soprano, Dutch soprano Ellie Ameling, who sings beautifully, and she includes here song sets that are primarily for women, including La Chanson d'Ève, the Song of Eve, the biblical Eve, which is a really gorgeous, very sublime set of songs, real depth to the writing, and she sings that with just beautiful tone, wonderful control, very nuanced and poignant. And then also Le Jardin Clos, the enclosed garden. Again, the Garden of Eden. That's really a sensuous work. So especially for Ameling, I recommend this set as well. Now for Fauré, I want to mention just a few more singers. One is, and this is going back a little bit in time, is Suzé's mentor, Pierre Bernac. Bernac actually was the one who kind of pushed Suzé into singing. These are mono recordings recorded between the 30s and the 50s, various composers and accompanists. And Bernac was just a consummate chanson singer, very soulful, this deep, rich tone. He sort of had that old school kind of operatic sound with the vibrato, but well controlled and beautiful fluidity, the way he connected the words, which is essential in French chanson. This includes just a few songs by Fauré as well as other composers. Après un rêve is in here. The third song of Mirage, Jardin Nocturne, the Night Garden, really beautiful song. And the mono sound is something that you just get used to, and at the end the voice wins out. I also want to mention once again this set from Maggie Tate, the British singer who specialized in French chanson. She brings just this immersion in the style, that bell-like soprano, kind of floating dreamily, very wonderful fluidity. So that's a must as well if you're wanting to get into chanson. Includes other composers as well. So really a priceless set. And then finally, I want to mention another golden age chanson singer, Charles Ponzera. Ponzera actually knew Fauré at the Paris Conservatoire. In fact, L'Horizon Chimérique was dedicated to Ponzera, and he made some recordings with his wife, who he also met at the Conservatoire, Magdalene Ponzero-Bayot. And these two discs on Dutton include many of the individual songs that we talked about. Includes also the song cycles L'Horizon Chimérique and the La Bonne Chanson, coupled with, I think it's on, is it this one? Yes, and this one, which also includes his famous Schumann Dichterliebe with Alfred Cortot. This one includes individual songs as well as some Duparc. Duparc is an interesting composer, very chromatic, the shifting chords. For example, ecstasy. It's love intertwined with the sleep of death, so it's a little bit kind of spooky. But Ponzera, another very soulful singer. He had this beautiful, warm sound, very lyrical. For example, his version of Clair de Lune, just so beautifully tender, and wonderfully played by his wife, too, on the piano part. He was just really a giant of the genre, and for me, just really essential for French chanson as well. All right, so that's Fauré. Now we come to English composer Gerald Finzi of the early 20th century. And a work he wrote, it's a cantata for solo, soprano, or tenor with orchestra called Dies Natalis, Day of Birth. It's a very kind of ethereal work, atmospheric. It's about the wonderment of God's creation and of birth. A really gorgeous work. And for this one, my top choice is the tenor that was really indelibly associated with it. He sang it with the composer several times. That's Wilfrid Brown. And here he's got Christopher Finzi, the son of the composer, and the English Chamber Orchestra in 1963, a good stereo sound. And Wilfrid Brown had this beautiful soft sound, and he did a great job of evoking just the wonderment of the text. And then you have the composer's son, and how perfect is that? A work about the miracle of birth, and you have this reference recording conducted by the son of the composer. So that's really something. Incidentally, fun fact, Christopher Finzi was married to Hilary Dupré, who, if you saw the movie Hilary and Jackie, Jacqueline Dupré is going through, her illness, and she comes to stay with them on their farm. And according to the movie, she has an affair that's consented to by Hilary with Christopher Finzi. Interesting tidbit about Finzi. All right, so that is this work. I also want to mention one more set of songs by Finzi. Let Us Garlands Bring. This actually was the centerpiece of my own master's recital many moons ago. And it's based on text by Shakespeare. It's a very solemn work, very, very dignified and noble, about themes of life and love. The third song is beautifully solemn. Fear no more the heat of the sun, nor the furious winter's rages. And my top choice for this one, this is the version that I studied when I was preparing, is Bryn Terfel, the Welsh baritone, sounding wonderfully rich and virile in this recording from 1995 with Malcolm Martineau. This is a wonderful disc called The Vagabond. The title comes from the first song of a Vaughan Williams set that we'll talk about later. But his version of the Finzi is just sublime. Just very, just the nobility of it, very intelligent, and that deep, rich tone. Just really wonderful. It's been, 30 years since this came out, and I guess we can call this a timeless classic at this point. It really is. Okay, next, now we talk about French composer César Franck, who we've discussed before, his Symphony in D, as well as his beautiful violin sonata, just one of my absolute favorite chamber works. I'm going to discuss just a short piece of his called Panis Angelicus, which was originally part of a mass setting, but it's just so catchy that it's kind of the standalone aria. Panis Angelicus means bread of angels. It's a very devotional piece. And for this one, I want to recommend the version by Luciano Pavarotti. This comes in his greatest hits album. I believe originally it was an LP called Oh Holy Night, which you can still find on CD as well. But I like this greatest hits album for all the opera stuff as well. Panis Angelicus comes from, it's recorded in 1976 when he was in his prime, with Kurt Adler conducting the National Philharmonic, with the Wandsworth School Boys Choir coming in at the end. And Pavarotti just sings with passion and devotion, just the beauty and the power of his voice just very naturally brings across the music. And then at the end you have the boys choir come in, that evocation of heaven. So this is really a can't miss version. And then next I want to talk about another short piece from a French composer, almost an exact contemporary of Franck actually, Charles Gounod, who was known more for his opera. This is a short work, Ave Maria, the Hail Mary, which utilizes the first prelude from Bach's Well-Tempered Clavier. And then you have this slow melodic Ave Maria tune sung above that. And it's really, really gorgeous. And my recommendation for this one comes from a Christmas album by the soprano Kathleen Battle, recorded in 1986, very beautifully recorded. Leonard Slotkin and the St. Luke's Orchestra. I think it's the St. Luke's, is that right? Yeah, St. Luke's. And they have the harp arpeggio going in the background, and she just sounds perfectly angelic. That sweet tone that she has, but nice fullness as well. Just a really wonderful version, very, very caressing. All right, next we come to Norwegian Edvard Grieg. And we talked about in the video on piano works how colorful and inventive Grieg was, and for example with his lyric pieces for piano, and you see the same thing in his songs. They're really endlessly inventive. He wrote one song cycle, Haugtusse, which is evocative of nature in expressing first love, a young girl's feelings of first love. And then also I want to mention his most famous single song, Jeg elsker deg, this very sentimental song about love, basically. But it's a very, very beautiful, stereotypically romantic work. And for this one, I want to recommend sort of what's become a modern classic, Anne Sophie von Otter, with Bengt Forsberg, recorded in 1992. Just a beautiful recording. Otter sings with great character and intelligence, a beautiful tone, wonderful care to for the text and the meaning of each song. Just really puts it out there, and it's really a home run. Beautifully recorded as well. I do also want to mention an actual Norwegian. Otter's not too far. She's from Sweden, but one of the most famous singers of the 20th century, Kirsten Flagstad. These were recorded in the late 30s. Includes Haugtusse as well as a few of the songs. The pianist is Edward MacArthur. And Flagstad had that enormous sound. Of course, she was known primarily for her Wagner, but she really sang beautifully in art song as well. Just beautiful phrasing, just that ravishing tone that just flows. And these prima voce discs, I'll mention them a few times. These are really cleaned up. They reduce the surface hiss, and there's a little bit more bloom to the sound. So this is one that I also want to recommend for these Grieg songs. Next, we come to Handel, and I want to mention for Handel basically a couple of discs that feature some of the arias that come from his operas and oratorios, especially probably the most famous one of the most famous art songs. You see it a lot in music contests. Ombre my fou, which is basically an ode to a tree. But not just any tree, a special tree, a tree that has been around forever, so that the serenity of its shade just lasts forever. It is really a gorgeous song. And my first recommendation here is from Lorraine Hunt Lieberson with Harry Bickett and the Orchestra of the Age of Enlightenment, recorded in the early 2000s. Just gorgeous, just beautiful control, very, very delicate. And this also includes arias from the opera Theodora, as well as the cantata La Lucrezia. And this just is a real great vehicle for Hunt Lieberson's that beautiful tone, the depth, the heartfelt expression, and the control that she sang with, and the intelligence and artistry. Just a wonderful singer, and a great compilation of Handel. I also want to mention one more. This is, again, the British contralto Kathleen Ferrier, recorded in the late 40s with Malcolm Sargent and the London Symphony. A little bit of crackles and so on, but her large voice just fills the speakers so that you don't think about it. Ombre my fou, done beautifully, just really drawn out, very dignified and eloquent, and with humanity just pouring out. She also has a version of the song Art Thou Troubled, which comes from the opera Rodelinde, which is about a usurped king separated from his wife, which actually the song Art Thou Troubled is really an English kind of adaptation of that, about just in generally, about needing soothing for your soul, and she sings that as well, just beautifully with that deep, comforting tone. This also includes several other Ferrier favorites, including some Mendel arias, Gluck's What is Life from Orfeo and Eurydice, tenderly sung, just beautiful. So I'm a big Ferrier fan, so I'm always going to find ways to bring Ferrier in, and I'm not going to miss it with this beautiful Handel. All right, next we come to Mahler, Gustav Mahler, late Romantic, of course, known for his colossal symphonies, but also known for his vocal writing as well, which he did figure out how to mix into his symphonies as well. And starting with one of the iconic works of classical music in general, Das Lied von der Erde, the Song of the Earth, which is an ode to basically the earth and life's pleasures while we're here. And that's the key phrase, while we're here, because there's also the bittersweet knowledge that it's all fleeting, and at some point we have to say goodbye. And that's really starkly brought across in the final song of the six movements, Der Abschied, the farewell, which is half the piece. It's roughly half an hour. And the work is for an alto, tenor, and orchestra, although you can also substitute a baritone for the alto. And it's the alto that's featured in that final Abschied. So really it's thought of more as a alto-dominated vehicle, but just a a gorgeous, sublime work. And my top choice for this one is an old classic, mono, but fairly good sounding mono. Kathleen Ferrier, Julius Patzak, with Bruno Walter conducting the Vienna Philharmonic in 1952. And this is just such a passionate, committed version from all involved. Ferrier was indelibly associated with this work. She was well known for it in concert. She sings it with such commitment. Every single phrase, she just really delves into the emotions, especially in the final Abschied. The delicacy with which she sings the final ewig phrase is just so gorgeous. And then you have Bruno Walter, who knew Mahler, premiered the work after Mahler's death. But he certainly knew Mahler's thoughts on the work, and he was a musician who. There's a famous interview with Walter where he says, "If a conductor has not experienced passionate love, he could never conduct Tristan und Isolde, or if he does not experience nature, he could never conduct the pastoral." So he understood the importance of really understanding the emotions of a work, and in this case, you had Ferrier singing about saying goodbye to the earth, and she was literally on the verge of death herself. So you have these two artists who were associated with the work, who were artistically simpatico with each other. Add to that Julius Patzak, who had this strong tenor voice. It was a little bit past its prime, but he sings with wonderful character. And then the Vienna Philharmonic plays with great passion as well, very attuned to Walter, especially the string section, just really impassioned, and fairly good sound. There's a little bit of harshness. It doesn't have the quite the fullness of your best stereo recordings, but for me, when the performance is this good, I'll take what I can get. I see it as an aligning of the stars of just great artistry and fairly good mono sound. I will mention, however, that there is also a recording of the live concert that was given one day after the recording sessions. This is on Tara. And ironically enough, the sound actually has a little bit more clarity to it. It's a little bit less harsh. It doesn't have quite the fullness and depth of the studio recording, but it actually is a little bit, to my ear, it's a little bit easier on the ear. And in addition to that, it's also a very committed, intense live performance. So I would also recommend this one if you love that studio recording as much as I do. Now, Ferrier did possess a sort of a unique tone, this really deep, dark alto tone. It's not always to everyone's taste. Her heir apparent in this work was Janet Baker, who had a little bit more of a lighter, maybe more kind of a vibrant sound. And my recommendation for Baker in this work is this live recording from 1970 with Waldemar Kment on tenor and Raphael Kubelik in the Bavarian Radio Symphony. Baker just sounds gorgeous, just really sensitive and poignant, very, very touching, just a gorgeous interpretation. And Kment, he didn't have quite the powerful ringing tenor, but he had a nice depth to his sound, a nice warmth and expressivity. And then Kubelik, one of the great Mahler conductors, very, very energetic and sensitive as well. The recording quality is fairly good. It's not quite as good as the most detailed full stereo recordings, but it's good enough, especially when the performance is as great as this one. However, if you do want a better sound, more kind of demonstration quality, you might say, ironically, a little earlier recording is the one I recommend for that. This version from the Chicago Symphony with Fritz Reiner and Maureen Forrester on alto and Richard Lewis on tenor. This comes from 1959, and in this latest remastering, it sounds wonderful, really detailed, very present, gorgeous playing from the Chicago Symphony. You know, you can always count on them under Reiner for the detail. And his interpretation it's a very natural interpretation as he tended towards. It's nothing is imposed on the music, so it really beautifully comes across. Forrester sings a little bit more of a reserved style, but it's beautifully poignant, very, very nuanced and sensitive. One of the most beautiful offsheets you'll ever hear. And then Richard Lewis sings very heroically with a beautiful tone, as well as poetically as well. So this is a wonderful version, particularly if you're wanting better sound quality. And then I mentioned that you can have this with a baritone voice alongside the tenor. And the famous version of that, of course, is Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. This is also a very good sounding recording from 1966. This is with that renowned Mahler conductor Leonard Bernstein with the Vienna Philharmonic. And Fischer-Dieskau's interpretation, first of all, is masterful. He was really well suited to Mahler, both dramatically and vocally. And the combination of him and Bernstein, the emotions, you almost worry that they'll sort of bubble over, and at times it almost feels like they will, but they never quite do. It's actually a very nuanced interpretation. The final offsheet is just heavenly in its delicacy. Just really a gorgeous recording that I would not want to be without. And then you have on tenor James King, who is very dramatically powerful. So really wonderful version. Even if you generally prefer alto versions, I still would recommend that you at least listen to this one. Now, he did do an earlier one, Fischer-Dieskau, in 1959 with the Philharmonia, with Paul Kletzky conducting and Murray Dickey on tenor. This is actually coupled with the Fourth Symphony of Mahler that I recommended in my symphony discussion. So you're probably going to want this anyways. When he was a few years younger, he tended to have Fischer-Dieskau a smoother tone, and you do hear that here. It's very vocally smooth and present. I would actually argue that he was a little bit more nuanced in the later one, ironically. I know there's this reputation that he kind of got barky and shouty, but he really, I don't think, did that too much in that Bernstein recording. This one's really a little bit more straightforward, more of the proverbial natural interpretation, which works well too. Really gorgeously sung and beautifully played, and Murray Dickey is a wonderfully expressive tenor soloist as well. So this is a version that I would also not want to be without, even though I would, if you're coming to Fischer-Dieskau first in this work, I would still tend towards the Bernstein. A few more versions to discuss. One comes from that renowned Mahler conductor Jascha Hornstein. This is a live recording from 1972 with Alfreda Hodgson on alto, and John Mitchison is the tenor. This is with the BBC Northern Symphony. Pretty good sound quality. It's got maybe just a little bit of harshness for being a live recording, but a fairly good sound quality. Hornstein was just loved this work. One of his famous quotes is that the worst thing for him about dying is not being able to hear Das Lied von der Erde again. So you can imagine that he conducted it very passionately, and he does. He tended towards slower tempos. He delved into every nook and cranny. Very, very powerful in the dramatic moments, but mostly it's the sensitivity. It's a really, really moving version. Hodgson had a very strong, beautiful tone, and Mitchison, not the most dramatic or powerful of tenors, but he also sings very sensitively, which goes along with the interpretation. So this is one I would also not want to be without. Another version I want to recommend if you are interested in good sound quality is this one from 1963, good stereo sound with the Concertgebouw playing beautifully under Eugen Jochum. This is with Nan Merriman and Ernst Hayfliger on tenor. And Jochum conducts it in a very sensuous way. It's very flexible, really, really gorgeous sounding. If you especially like to kind of take a bath in that, I like to call it like taking a bath in beautiful orchestral sounds, orchestral color. This is a version I recommend for that. And Merriman, very strong, powerful American mezzo, beautiful offsheet. Hayfliger, another one of those ringing, heroic tenors who could also be soft and nuanced as well. So this is an excellent version. Next, I want to mention one that you might be surprised I'm just now coming to it, but this is one of the most famous versions, the Klemperer. Otto Klemperer conducting the Philharmonia and New Philharmonia in the early 60s with Christa Ludwig on alto and Fritz Wunderlich on tenor. First of all, the voices. You're not going to find better sounding soloists, and they both sing very dramatically, and especially Wunderlich. He's Wunderlich. He just had this amazing tone and amazing strength and power to his voice. Almost sounds too easy for him. What other mere mortals struggle with. So he's a must. And Ludwig also sings very poignantly. Klemperer brings that typical Klemperer kind of the gravitas. The one kind of criticism that I have is that for a work like this that's so sensuous and dramatic, especially in the inner movements, I feel like there could be a little bit more flexibility in movement. And then the final opsheet, to my ears, the end of it just sort of happens. That's just the way it's always sounded to me. I don't feel like I'm being transported into the next world like you do on some. But others hear it differently, and I did mention in my video on the consensus reference versions that this is one of them for sure. And it's definitely, you cannot fault the sound or the vocal production. So still one that I would also not want to be without. And then finally, I want to mention one, a live recording from 1939. So not the best of sound, although fairly clear and present once you get past that. This is a very passionate version. Also with the Concertgebouw, conducted by Karl Schuricht. And this is with Kirsten Thorborg on alto, and Carl Martin Uhlmann is the tenor. These are both Swedish singers. Really dramatic performance. Very sensitively conducted by Schuricht. Uhlmann sings, he just really goes for it on that tenor solo, very dramatically. He even gets applause at the end of his final number. And then Thorborg, with her, she was a Wagnerian mezzo. Think of kind of a lower sitting Kirsten Flagstad. Very passionate and expressive, but also very hushed in that final opsheet. Just one of the most beautiful opsheets you'll ever hear. And apparently it really got to the audience because infamously in the middle of it, this lady gets up and says very loudly, "Deutschland über alles, Herr Schuricht." And then you hear this sort of murmur through the crowd. So obviously a Nazi sympathizer who apparently you would assume was not a fan of having a Jewish composer being performed at that time. But she doesn't spoil the show. It continues. And in the end, that's more of a historical footnote to what is really a fantastic recording. All right, so that's Das Lied von der Erde. Now let's talk about his other song cycles, which can be done with orchestra, sometimes with piano, and there's three of them that are often collected together. Two of them are based on the poetry of Friedrich Rückert, a German romantic, and the ones that I would actually start with are the 5 Rückert Lieder, which are more of a collection than they are a through-composed cycle. Especially two of the most beautiful, poignant songs that Mahler wrote, Mitternacht, at midnight, which is sort of this sad, despondent song about life's woes, and then Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen, I am lost to the world, and it actually is not as despondent as it might sound. I mean, it really does sound like, I'm done with the world's crap. But it's really more about kind of retreating into your inner world of solitude and getting away from the noise. It's a really, really gorgeous song. And then the other set of poems by Rückert, this is a more through composed cycle of 5 songs, Kindertotenlieder, songs of basically the deaths of children, a very obviously morbid topic. Rückert had lost 2 of his own children. Mahler even commented later that he would not have been able to write this cycle when his own child died, and the emotions were that palpable. It's a very beautiful set of songs. It evokes the emotions of the raw emotions of going through that, which of course was something more common back then. But then at the end, it's sort of this quiet acquiescence to fate. So a difficult subject, but a beautiful poetry and writing as well. And then I also want to discuss the Lieder eines fahrenden Gesellen, Songs of a Wayfarer. And this is basically a cycle about lost love. Although it does actually have the second song as a fairly happy song, which was used in his first symphony. And then the final song is this sort of resolution of the grief, which was also used in his first symphony in the slow movement. That's a common thing you see with Mahler, that he borrows vocal music from his songs and puts them in his symphonies. All right, so talking about recordings now, I have to start with one of the iconic solo vocal recordings, Janet Baker, with John Barbaroli and the Halle Orchestra, as well as the New Philharmonia, recorded in the late 60s. Just gorgeous, just beautiful artistry. The Kindertotenlieder is very poignant and dignified. It doesn't ever delve into melodrama. The Rückert-Lieder is very tender, especially the Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen is just gorgeous. And Barbaroli gives her all the time. Of course, Barbaroli being one of the great Mahler conductors as well, and then really beautiful sound quality. It's just really a classic, and for good reason. You can also, I want to recommend for that one, get it as part of this box. And this box of Barbaroli Mahler includes the first symphony, the fifth, the sixth, and the ninth, and all of those are my top recommendations in my symphony videos. So obviously this is a slam dunk of a box set, particularly with the newest remasterings. Can't go wrong with that. Before we leave the Mahler songs, I want to mention a few others. One is, again, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. As I mentioned in the Das Lied von der Erde, he was really well suited to Mahler, both vocally and dramatically. And he has a recording of all 3 song cycles, kind of spread around. The Kindertotenlieder is with the Berlin Philharmonic and Rudolf Kempe in 1955. The Rückert-Lieder is actually on piano in 1978 with Daniel Barenboim. And that's beautifully tender. That gorgeous tone of Fischer-Dieskau was still going strong then, and then you had the beautiful accompaniment from Barenboim. The Kindertotenlieder, very dramatic and deeply felt. And then probably most of all, the Lieder eines fahrenden Gesellen. He really gives a great interpretation of that, very deeply felt. And in that one, it's from 1952, with the Philharmonia conducted by Wilhelm Furtwängler. The only Mahler that we have on record conducted by Furtwängler, very, very sensitively. It makes you wish he'd done more of it. So this is a really great disc as well. I do also want to mention, again, for the Songs of the Wayfarer with Fischer-Dieskau, there's also this recording with Raphael Kubelik and the Bavarian Radio Symphony from 1968. This is coupled with the first symphony that Kubelik did that I recommend in my symphony video. So you're going to want this regardless. This one's better recorded. He's, if anything, even more nuanced, I would say, in this version. So it's maybe not as palpably raw as that earlier one, but it's very, very beautiful. So wouldn't want to be without either one. And then finally, I want to go back to that British contralto Kathleen Ferrier. again with Bruno Walter and the Vienna Philharmonic. This is the Kindertotenlieder, recorded in 1949. It's a little bit noisy, the recording. The voice comes out strongly. It's only the orchestra that is a little bit recessed. But the artistry is the reason you listen to this. Just that impeccable phrasing takes that big contralto sound and controls it just so exquisitely, and always deeply heartfelt, as well as the accompaniment by Walter. So we have this, and then we also have 3 of the Rückert-Lieder that are coupled with, well, I want to say they're coupled with the Das Lied von der Erde. I don't have that version. That's the new one. I have it probably back where I had the Brahms. Yeah, here it is. So I have this older issue, but it's from the same sessions as that Das Lied von der Erde from 1952. Includes the 2 most famous ones, Mitternacht and Ich bin der Welt abhanden gekommen. Just beautifully phrased, beautifully sung, and touching and heartfelt. So these are unmissable as well. All right, before we leave Mahler, we have one more cycle to talk about, and this is one, it's a little bit earlier. It's one that combines soprano and baritone with orchestra. And this is Des Knaben Wunderhorn, the boy's magic horn. And as you can probably glean, this is a little bit less heavy topics. It deals with old legends, more themes of heroism and patriotism. Although there's also this very sublime song, the Urlicht, towards the end, which is for the alto. This became the penultimate movement of the Second Symphony. So that's an example again where he used vocal works in his symphonies. Really hushed, sublime ode to seeking divine light. And for this cycle, my top recommendation is this vintage early 60s recording with Maureen Forrester on alto, and Heinz Rehfuss is the baritone, Felix Prohaska conducting the Vienna Festival Orchestra. Just wonderful character and energy throughout this. They have, both of them just come with strong voice and wonderful character in inhabiting each song. Forrester sounds beautifully gorgeous on that Urlicht. So this is just a wonderful version, well recorded, and wonderful vibrancy and color from the orchestra as well. All right, so that's Mahler. Now I want to discuss 20th century Swiss composer Franck Martin. He wrote a set of pieces during World War II called the 6 Monologues on Jedermann. Now, Jedermann was a morality play. It was an Austrian morality play that was actually based on a British play that actually was originally medieval Dutch. And basically, Jedermann, that means an everyman, is a character being confronted with his own mortality and just confronting his life and basically repenting for his sins. It's really a fairly religious work, comes from Martin's Christian faith, and it's very intense, very dramatic, with shifting tonality. And for this one, my recommendation is the classic version from the early 60s with Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. Fischer-Dieskau was really up his alley in terms of the dramatic expression of vocally, just really strong vocals. And then you have the Berlin Philharmonic conducted by the composer Franck Martin. Again, part of this box set that I keep returning to. You can also, there is a single disc that was issued decades ago, but I really recommend this box set especially. But anyways, a classic recording of this work that I highly recommend. All right, next we come to Claudio Monteverdi, late 16th century, early 17th century composer who was right on that cusp between the Renaissance and Baroque. I tend to think of him more as a sort of a pioneer of Baroque, who basically took Renaissance polyphony and brought the Baroque, techniques like the basso continuo, dissonance, more intricate harmonization. He's known for his operas, which were really some of the earliest operas, as well as his choral works, as well as his solo vocal works. So for Monteverdi, I want to recommend a disc of his sacred solo vocal music. This is just a gorgeous recording. It's really seductive. Really, it's just so beautiful. From again the Queen of Baroque singing, Emma Kirkby on soprano, also joined by the tenor Ian Partridge, and the bass David Thomas, with the parley of instruments. This is a 1981 recording with Roy Goodman and Peter Holman conducting. It's a little bit short measure. It's about a little over 40 minutes. I'm assuming that it was probably issued first on LP and maybe was originally filling up an LP, but it's so good that I still think it's worth it, even if it doesn't fill up an entire CD. Just immaculate singing. Kirkby sounding crystalline as ever, and then Partridge matching her in that purity of tone. Thomas with that strong, secure bass that's also flexible and really well suited to the genre, and wonderful playing from the parley of instruments. Just a gorgeous disc. All right, so that's Monteverdi. Next, I want to discuss a piece by Mozart. The Exultate Jubilate. This is a work that he wrote in his teens, a religious work, and it's a very happy, joyous work. It's just really bubbling with energy, very virtuosic for the soprano, particularly in the final Alleluia. And for this one, I recommend a version from the late 70s. Edith Mathis. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correct. In American English, it's Edith Mathis, but I believe it's probably Edith Mathis, a Swiss soprano, accompanied by Bernard Klee and the Staatskapelle Dresden. And Mathis sings with this beautiful fullness, but also agility and lightness, sort of a mixture of the two that's perfect for Mozart. And then you add to that the warmth of the orchestra, very good sound, wonderful version of this work. All right, so that's Mozart's Exultate. Now we come to the Russian late Romantic composer, or maybe he was more mid-Romantic, I don't know how, yeah, probably more mid-Romantic, Modest Mussorgsky. And he wrote quite a bit in the song repertoire with that rich Russian text, very inventive, both dramatically and musically. His most famous cycle is the 4 songs and dances of death, which is a really stark depiction of death. Death is actually a character who is like comforting a mother who is grieving, and then in the second song he's basically seducing a sick young girl, and then in the third song he does a dance with a drunkard, and then in the final song he is speaking to this battlefield of dead soldiers, saying, "I am now your field commander." So it's a very macabre cycle, very very stark treatment of the subject matter, but lots of character. And then there is also a set of songs called "The Nursery," which is very different. This is depicting a child kind of having these visions of mischief. And then you have something quite different from that, Sunless, which is this, as the title would suggest, this very dark set, very forlorn, but very, very beautiful as well. And then finally, I also want to mention a single song, the Song of Mephistopheles, or Song of the Flea. This comes from Goethe's Faust, where you have a king's court that features a flea, and this song is most notable for these hearty laughs, ha ha ha, that come after like each verse. So that's kind of a whimsical little song. So as you can tell, Mussorgsky is kind of all over the map in kind of subject matter. And I have to recommend for this one the proverbial classic, The Complete Songs by Boris Christoph, recorded in the 1950s. The recording quality is fairly good. His deep bass sound just fills the speakers, so no issues there. He's mostly accompanied on piano by Alexander Lubinsky. The songs of Dances in Death are done actually with orchestra, with the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande, conducted by Georges Tsipin. Just wonderful virile character from Christoph. I mean, he's just so natural in this repertoire. That deep bass, but very flexible. Wonderful character throughout. He's able to inhabit these different moods that you see between Mussorgsky's songs. So just a classic set. All right, so that's Mussorgsky. Now I want to discuss early 17th century Italian composer Giovanni Pergolesi, a fairly short-lived composer, and his masterwork was the Stabat Mater, which is written for a soprano and alto with orchestra. And as you can imagine, it's sort of a sad, poignant piece. It's depicting the grieving of the Virgin Mary at the crucifixion, but really a gorgeous piece. The opening with the two voices singing together and the way they're weaved together in grief, it's really eloquent. And my top choice for this one is from 1972, with two singers known for their opera recordings, Mirella Freni and Teresa Braganza, with Ettore Gracchis conducting the Solisti dell'Orchestra di Solisti dell'Orchestra Scalati di Napoli, yes, so they do have operatic voices, but it's very well controlled and very beautiful. There's beautiful warmth from both the singers and the orchestra. It's really controlled well. And actually, Pergolesi himself was known in his time as an opera composer. In fact, he was a pioneer of comic opera. So it's not exactly off the wall to have opera singers performing this repertoire, and especially as it's done here, just really beautifully. However, if you do want a more what you would call period-y version, we have this really beautiful one from 1988 with, here she is again, Emma Kirkby on soprano, and then a countertenor on the alto part, James Bowman. And this is with Christopher Hogwood and the Academy of Ancient Music. Really eloquent, really a little bit more on the reserved side compared to that other recording, but really poignant in its more reserved way. Just crystalline beauty from both soloists, really stylish playing as well. So really, I wouldn't want to be without either of these two recordings. All right, next we come to a French composer, but this time a more modern one, a 20th century composer, Francis Poulenc. Poulenc was very inventive, often light-hearted subject matter, but very complex musically. I love Poulenc's choral works. We'll talk about those later with the shifting chords. He had a very unique musical language. And for Poulenc, if you're first getting your feet wet in it, I would recommend this disc that I've already recommended a couple of times of Régine Crespin with the Berlioz Les Nuits d'été, as well as the Debussy Chanson de Bilitis. This features a few songs, including two from his set of Banalité, basically songs on banal topics. And Crespin just sounds really into the character of these works. Very sultry, this sort of dry tone. For example, listen to Hotel. You can almost smell the cigarettes as she creates that atmosphere. So a great way to get to know Poulenc if you're first getting into it. And then I would go back to this singer we mentioned earlier, who was actually a friend of Poulenc and is accompanied by Poulenc on these recordings, Pierre Bernac. This includes a cycle called Tel jour, telle nuit, like day, like night, which is based on poetry by Poulenc's friend Paul Eluard, who was a pioneer of the Surrealist movement, which was kind of about just irrational, like the subconscious figments of the imagination, lots of themes of contrast, and contradicting emotions. The cycle's called like day, like night, so you can kind of glean that. And Bernac, accompanied by Poulenc, that's really, obviously from the horse's mouth, and they really do a great job of depicting the dreamy atmosphere of the works. Bernac just was such a soulful singer with a beautiful tone, and accompanied in as well as with some other Poulenc songs as well as other French chansons. So this is a disc I really recommend for this repertoire, as well as, of course, this set that I mentioned earlier, which I have to go back to, Gérard Souzet. Now this includes a few Poulenc song cycles and individual songs, including the cycle La Travail du Peintre, the painter's work, which is a depiction of different 20th century painters, including, for example, Pablo Casals and Marc Chagall, and it has sort of shifting emotions that kind of go along with the stream of consciousness of the painter's work. And Souzet just brings that consummate artistry, the beautiful tone, the attention to text for which he's known. So really, you can't go wrong here, not just for Poulenc, but for all these other composers that are on this set as well. All right, so that's Poulenc. Now I briefly want to touch on a piece by Rachmaninoff, one of his most popular little works, Vocalise. It's a wordless piece for soprano, accompanied by orchestra, and it's very sweet and nostalgic. It has that famous Rachmaninoff kind of schmaltz, the lyrical melody, but it's really beautiful, kind of a haunting piece, really. And for this one, I go back to a disc I recommended earlier for the Canteloube selections, Anamorpho with Leopold Stokowski and the American Symphony, recorded in 1964. Just really ravishingly beautiful, both from Mofo and Stokowski in the orchestra. Mofo had this full operatic tone, but that she controlled really well. The long lines of this piece, especially at the hushed, quiet moments, really beautifully controlled by Mofo. So a really gorgeous version. All right, so that's Rachmaninoff's Vocalise. Now I want to discuss some vocal works by Maurice Ravel, including his set of 3 songs for soprano and orchestra, Scheherazade, basically the Arabian Nights story. And that really gives Ravel a chance to delve into his typical color and dreaminess, very beautiful. If you like Daphne and Chloe, for example, you'll probably like this set of songs as well. And here I once again go back to this disc that I keep recommending with Régine Crespin and Ernest Ansermet with the Orchestre de la Suisse Romande. Just as classic as her version of the Berlioz Les Nuits d'été. Very sultry, seductive tone, beautifully characterizes the text, lushly played by the orchestra as well, and the vintage Decca sound. And in addition to that, I do want to recommend also this much older version, again from the English French chanson specialist Maggie Tate. This is from 1948 with Hugo Rignold conducting the Covent Garden Orchestra. And it's just wonderful character from both the soloist and the orchestra. She was a little past her prime, and yes, the sound is not great, although she really comes across strongly here, much better than the orchestra. but they really do a great job of evoking that dreamy atmosphere. So even though this is not the best sound quality, at least as a supplement, I would still recommend this. Plus, as I said, this set is just priceless for Tate's interpretations of French song in general. Now, before we leave Ravel, I do want to mention a few other song sets. One is Histoire Naturelle, Natural Histories, which is sort of like this avant-garde carnival of the animals, where the animals have human emotions on just sort of random topics. It's really beautiful in the way the voice and the piano are together. They create this sort of dreamy atmosphere, almost kind of exotic. And then you have this other set of songs, Chansons Madagascan songs, which even sound more exotic. In fact, they include a flute and cello to kind of add to that atmosphere. And for this, I once again go back to Gerard Souzet and that wonderful set that he recorded from the 60s with Dalton Baldwin. Really colorful and dynamic, the way he interprets the different variety of moods. Includes also a few other Ravel songs, including the two Hebrew melodies, which is another sort of exotic sounding set of songs that he sings beautifully. All right, so that's Ravel. Now I want to talk about a piece by the pioneer of atonality, Arnold Schoenberg. This is a work called Pierrot Lunaire, which is a really interesting work. It caused quite a stir when it premiered. It was actually right around the time of the Rite of Spring, and it had a similar reaction of people just being all up in arms. It's in the style of Sprechgesang or Sprechgesang, which is speak singing. So you're not exactly really singing. It's kind of this kind of spooky sound, and then you have this sparse instrumentation, which adds to the spooky element. The character is this artistic societal misfit who is just sort of having these mad ravings. It's really it's really kind of off the wall and not something anybody was really used to. But I can definitely say that Schoenberg brought the art of the song cycle to the 20th century with this. And this recording comes from 1970. It's sung by Jan de Gaetani, an American, who really does a great job of delving into that style without hamming it up too much. It's really convincing. The orchestra is the chamber ensemble, or the contemporary chamber ensemble, conducted by Arthur Weisberg, and they do a great job too of setting the atmosphere, and really clear recording as well. So a great way to get to know this work. All right. Now we come to the giant of Lieder, Franz Schubert. He was remarkably prolific for someone who died only at the age of 31. Wrote over 600 songs. And perhaps most notably, in addition to just writing so many songs, is the art of the song cycle. The through-composed work that has a narrative to it. His most famous one, and the most famous of the genre, is Winterreise, Winter Journey. This is a work based on poetry by the German romantic Wilhelm Müller. And it's the marriage of the music and the poetry, especially. It's a winter journey. It's based on basically early on you find out that the protagonist lost at love and is embarking on this lonely journey, and it's very dark. But really, it's sort of a journey that all of us can relate to, even if it's not specifically love. It's just going through really obviously tough times, and the poetry is just really inventive. For example, number 15, Die Krähe, the crow. where he's walking along and the crow is sort of waiting for him to die so that he can feast upon the poet. So it's always kind of teetering between death and hope. And at the end, the final song, Der Leiermann, the hurdy-gurdy man. Hurdy-gurdy is this boxed string instrument that you kind of wind, and it has this droning sound, which is mimicked in the piano line in that final song. It's interesting because the way it ends, he sees the hurdy-gurdy man, and it's almost like he finds a friend in his loneliness, and he kind of goes off with him. It reminds me a little bit of the end of Casablanca, when Rick goes off and says, Louis, this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. And it feels like that. It's actually a good analogy because in a similar way, it's sort of a vague ending. It almost feels like there's this wisdom gained through all the dashed hopes and dreams as you go off into the mist. Really wonderful song set. And like any great work, there's going to be a slew of wonderful interpretations. I'm not going to recommend, generally speaking, that you get just one. But my first recommendation is a relatively newer one from the late 80s. This is from Olaf Behr, accompanied by Jeffrey Parsons on piano. And what I really like about this one is the combination of beauty of tone and artistry. He has this strong, virile tone, but he's also able to sing the most delicate passages as well. Really the right amount of expression and vulnerability really draws you into the poetry. But you also admire just the beauty of it, the beauty of the writing. So that's a great combination, especially if you're coming to this work for the first time, and wonderfully recorded as well. I also want to recommend one of those proverbial timeless classics of the gramophone. This one comes from 1954. This is with Hans Hotter and Gerald Moore on piano. By the way, if I haven't said it already, you've already heard Gerald Moore several times. He is the guy for vocal accompaniment and spanning many decades as well. He might end up getting the prize at the end of this entire video survey of having the most recordings because he's just all over the place. But it's got Gerald Moore, and he recorded Winterreise many times as well. Hotter really... his version he's got that deep bass sound and this kind of calming authority that really kind of it kind of delves into the depths of the winter journey. Very nuanced. And like I was saying about like the idea of wisdom gained, you really get that sense here. Der Leiermann, the final song with the hurdy-gurdy man, it's taken a little bit slowly and just really poignantly. It's mono sound, but Hotter's voice, it's so big it fills up the speakers, so it's really not a problem. So this is really a great version as well. And then I have to mention the king of Winterreises in terms of number of recordings, and Schubert in general, of course, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. I imagine if they had camcorders back in those days, we'd probably have a video of him singing Winterreise in his crib because he's just got a ton of them. I can't even count how many there are. I'm actually going to recommend two, and both of them are from the 60s when he was probably at the height of both his vocal and interpretive powers. First, this one from 1965, accompanied by Jörg Demus on piano. When I think of Fischer-Dieskau, I just think of consummate artistry. Dramatically, he just delved into every nook and cranny of the meaning of each song, and always on that bedrock of beautiful, assured tone as well. And in this version, it's very committed dramatically, particularly. So this is the one I would start with. However, I also want to recommend this one with Gerald Moore. Again, this is from 1962. And this one is not quite as overtly dramatic, I would say, if you're going to try to compare the two, as this one. It's a little bit smoother. The converse of that is the beauty of it comes out a little bit more. He's a little bit more assured of tone in this one, I would say. And plus you have Gerald Morris playing, which is also wonderful for its insight. So I would say get both of these if you can, if you're a leader nut like myself. And then next we have Fischer-Dieskau's French rival, Gérard Souzet, who of course was the king of chanson, but also really wonderful in leader singing. Particularly the sort of inward quality, introspective quality that he brought to it. There's that dreamy aspect of chanson that I think really illuminates the German leader as well. This is from 1962, accompanied by Dalton Baldwin. This set includes both of the main, we'll get to, of the song cycles as well as other Schubert songs. And his Winterreise is just really dynamic, beautifully nuanced. He brings a different color and to each song, and it's really, if you love the work, it's something that gives you a perspective that I think is invaluable. So this is also a great version. And then I want to mention a few tenor versions. This one from Peter Pears with his real-life partner Benjamin Britten, recorded in 1963. This one is also very introspective and sensitive, almost an icy character to it, which is kind of apropos with Winterreise, a feeling of stillness and delicacy, as well as able to bring out the dramatic sections as well. Both of these guys were just tremendous artists, and so even though Piers's tone at times it sounds a little bit strained with the writing, it's artistically just so illuminating that this is also one I would not want to be without. And then you have the other Peter Schreier. He did one with Andras Schiff in studio, which is a more quote-unquote conventional version. I tend to prefer this live version from 1985 with Sviatoslav Richter. The sound is pretty good for a live performance. You can barely tell, and it's really kind of goes for broke more in terms of the emotions, almost of extremes. You might even say idiosyncratic at times. Of course, what do you expect? It's Sviatoslav Richter, but I like the engagement of it. It again, with the live recital, you do get a little bit more of that tension. And I think that really brings something to this song cycle. And then another tenor version I want to mention, a little bit more recent. This is from 2013. Jonas Kaufmann with Helmut Deutsch. Kaufmann, his sound is more kind of dark, almost this haunting quality, which does go well with this cycle, the darkness of it. He really utilizes his colors of the colors of his tone to illuminate the poetry. Very thoughtful version, very intense, beautifully recorded as well. So it's great to have a newer version to recommend, as well as this one, even newer. This is from a baritone, Swedish baritone, Peter Mattei. This is from 2018 with Lars David Nilsson on piano. This is very dramatic, very expressive, and Mattei's tone, there's this strong center to it. It's almost, ironically, an icy quality, which again kind of goes with the theme of the work. It's this haunting darkness to his tone, very seductive sounding. If you've seen him on stage for his opera roles, you might know his Don Giovanni, so he was good with that. Just a really dramatic, beautiful sounding recording. Incidentally, I'm going to kind of gratuitously slip this in here. As long as we're talking about Mattei, this isn't as well known a set of songs, but his fellow Swede, Wilhelm Stenhammar, Mattei, I think this is like 30 years old now, did this recording on Bis of Stenhammar songs that is just gorgeous. One of the most beautiful vocal recordings I know. It is perfectly suited to this repertoire. I especially like the first set, the thoughts on or poems on thoughts of solitude, I think is what it's called, but just gorgeous. So I'm just going to kind of slip this in here. If you're a Matai fan or just a fan of vocal repertoire in general, this is a really great disc. All right, back to Winterreise. This is a soprano version from 1988. One of the great leader performers of the past half century or so, Brigitte Fassbender, with Aribert Reimann on piano. And it's really something to hear a different perspective. It actually makes you appreciate the beauty of the writing more to hear it in the soprano register. And Fassbender is just a consummate artist, a beautiful full tone, very dramatic and passionate, really inhabits the emotions of the song. So this is also one that I think is an essential recording. And then I'm going to go back to a couple of older ones. This one was recorded in the last year of World War II, in 1945, with Peter Anders, the tenor, accompanied by Michael Rachheisen. And this is one where you have to admit that the circumstances really do seem to affect what you hear. It's sort of a one-off. It almost sounds like it's being done live. I mean, I don't know, maybe it was done in one take. It actually sounds fairly clear. I imagine it's probably that German magnetic tape. But the main thing is just the palpable emotions. It's really drawn out. Just every song is just infused with emotion. Anders had a beautiful ringing tenor tone. And it's almost, I almost want to say this is, more for the faint of heart, or not for the faint of heart. Maybe one of those proverbial recordings that you only hear every now and then, because I mean it really milks the drama of the work as completely as you can imagine. So I have to include this one as well. And then going back to this set, this baritone I mentioned earlier, Gerhard Hösch. This was actually the very first Winterreise recording, made in 1933 with Hans Udo Müller. Hösch was a giant of lieder singing in the early 20th century. This large baritone sound, a lot of depth and color to the sound, sort of the more golden age operatic sound, but still controlled. But another version where every song is just he just really delves into the emotions. At times you almost want to say it's melodramatic, but for me it really works. It's very direct and palpable, and I just love it. The sound quality is unfortunately a little bit dim, a little bit of hiss, but with vocal repertoire and the beauty of tone you hear here, you get over that. So, all right, so that's Winterreise. Now let's talk about that other giant song cycle, also based on the poetry of Wilhelm Müller by Schubert, Die schöne Müllerin. About the same length as Winterreise, about an hour long. And this one is basically about a guy who lost at love. But unlike Winterreise, this one does have more of a defined ending. The protagonist follows a brook to a mill, and he falls in love with the daughter of the miller, hence Die schöne Müllerin, the beautiful miller's daughter. But a huntsman comes along and steals her away, and so then the rest of the cycle is about him dealing with that. He's sort of this youthful character, very kind of idealistic, kind of innocent, and unfortunately he meets his demise at the end. He doesn't make it. The final two songs are really beautiful in their solemnity. Der Müller und der Bach, the Miller and the Brook, and des Baches Wiegenlied, the Brook's lullaby, basically about the death of our protagonist, but done very sweetly and beautifully. In that final song, it's really the Brook basically singing a lullaby at the demise of his friend. It's a really beautiful cycle. Obviously a kind of forlorn topic, but the marriage of the poetry and the musical writing is just really fantastic. And for this one, my top choice, I mentioned that it's sort of about idealistic love, almost youthful innocence. Perfect for Fritz Wunderlich, that beautiful honeyed tone. This was recorded in 1966 with Hubert Giesen on piano. And it's just so seductively beautiful. For example, the sixth song, Die Neugierige, the inquisitive one, where he's wanting to know if she loves him back. It's just heart-melting, the delicacy with which Wunderlich sings. And then those two final songs, get your Kleenex out. It's just beautiful. For me, this is just a perfect marriage of beautiful, earnest, heartfelt singing and beautiful tone with a song cycle that just that emanates that quality. But it's a great song cycle, so there are other great versions as well. Next, I want to mention again Gerard Souzet from this box set, which includes Winterreise. Souzet did a beautiful version of Die Schöne Müllerin, recorded in 1964, again with Dalton Baldwin. And it's the expressivity of Souzet's version, the way he tells the story. He varies the moods from song to song, the way he colors his voice, especially at the most hushed moments, just really beautiful. And then this version, a famous classic from 1961, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, again with Gerald Moore again. Just beautifully assured singing, that gorgeous tone, and always delving into the meaning of the text, bringing the drama forth. Just really gorgeously sung. If you want to just enjoy just the beauty of the writing, this is really a priceless version. And then a newer one, from a tenor voice again, is this one from 1995. Ian Bostridge with Graham Johnson on piano. And Bostridge sings with a much lighter tone, which really does kind of, again, go with the sort of innocence of the poetry, just beautifully tender. For example, the final song, the Brooks Lullaby, there's this Gute Nacht, good night, that repeats over and over again. Just gorgeously tender in this version. And then you have an added bonus here. There are 6 songs by Wilhelm Müller that were not set to music that are actually spoken here by none other than Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. So an interesting addition there. Very good sound quality, of course, being from the mid-90s. Now, for a few proverbial historical versions, one comes from, again, Gerhard Husch with Hans Udo Müller. This is from 1935. And again, Husch was just this consummate German lieder singer, just really wonderful storyteller. The way he conveys the different moods of each song with that wonderful tone. So that's an excellent version. Another one from 1943 is this one. Another one of those wartime recordings accompanied by Michael Rachheisen on piano. This is with Julius Patzak. Now, he didn't have that sweet honeyed tone of Wunderlich. He's a little bit more raw, but what you get here is the palpable emotion. He really goes for it. This is one of those where that aspect of the song cycle, the emotional part, really gets earthed out completely. Just very passionate version. Fairly well recorded, just a little bit of harshness, especially in the loud sections. And then, finally, I want to mention a real classic from 1945, Axel Schütz, accompanied by Gerald Moore. Beautiful version. Like Wunderlich, he had kind of this honeyed tone, a little bit of that youthful innocence, you might say, but consummate artistry, beautiful, just heartfelt singing. This is really a classic version, even though it's a little bit dim sounding. The ringing tenor sound comes through, so hopefully you won't really care about that after getting through just a song or two. A really, really beautiful version. All right, so that's the second of his like kind of big ones, the Wilhelm Müller song cycles. Another song cycle that really was actually patched together after his death is Schwanengesang, which means swan song. So it literally is what it says. It's sort of his swan song. And it was kind of patched together. It's not even one poet, but the themes are fairly similar. It's on love and loss. It's a fairly dark cycle, actually. The most famous song is the fourth one, which is really one of maybe Schubert's most famous song overall, Ständchen, which is the serenade, which is this dark, brooding plea of seduction. So that's really a highlight. My top choice for this one is a fairly newer recording from 1991 with Bryn Terfel, accompanied by Malcolm Martineau on piano. And Terfel's dark, really just rich tone really, I think, works well with these songs. For example, the seductive serenade, really strong and passionate. Also, Der Doppelgänger. That's a song where the poet sees the house of his lover, his lost love, and then sees his own image, hence the doppelganger, grieving beside it. Really dark, dramatic version from Terfel, beautifully recorded as well. Very direct interpretation, but I think it works very well. For something a little bit different, a little bit more, you might say, introspective, we get this one from Hans Hotter with Gerald Moore from 1954. It's got, again, that sort of more calmness to it that you associate with Hotter, that warmth of sound, that large baritone, bass baritone sound. But it's also very intense. For example, the song Die Stadt, the town, which is kind of the spooky song about seeing through the mist the town where he lost his beloved, very intensely sung here. So this is sort of a good complement to the Terfel in terms of the interpretation and the tone throughout. And fairly well recorded. Again, you're not going to have any trouble hearing Hotter through your speakers. And then finally, I want to mention a soprano version recorded in the late 80s, early 90s, again from Brigitte Fassbender with Aribert Reimann on piano. First of all, beautifully recorded. Just one of the best sounding lieder recordings that I know of. Fassbender sounds beautiful and a wonderful balance between the voice and the piano. So it's actually kind of a good recording to get to know if you're more of an audiophile type and you're new to lieder singing. She sings really passionately and emotionally. Really earths out the different emotions of each song. So this is an excellent version as well. All right, so that is the Schubert song cycles. Now let's talk about his individual lieder, all 600 of them. If you got another 30 hours or so. Okay, well, not that many, but let's try to cover as many as we can. I'll start by naming just a few of the most popular. First of course, you've got Erlkönig, the Earl King, really dramatic piece based on Goethe, kind of a dark story about a child who is being menaced by this mythical creature called the Earl King, and his father has to come to his rescue. Probably most famous is the piano part, which depicts the danger. It actually was arranged by Liszt into just a solo piano work. Incidentally, I have my own version of this work that you can see on YouTube, if you so please. Which includes the English translations. And then a slower piece, An die Musik. This is a soft, gentle work, which is a topic that we can all probably relate to on this channel, about how music is kind of like this safe place that we can kind of go into to get away from all life's chaos. And then another soft piece is Die bist die Ruhe, You Are Repose, which is a very gentle work. It's from a poem from Friedrich Rückert, almost 100 years before Mahler wrote his famous Rückert songs. A little bit more animated song is Heidenröslein, Rose on the Heath, which is an interesting little piece about a boy plucking a rose, who is essentially a young lady, and she's warning him, if you pluck me, I will prick you. So it's a little bit of an innocent, whimsical topic. And then On Sylvia, which means to Sylvia, it's based on the text from Shakespeare, which actually comes from Let Us Garlands Bring, which I mentioned earlier with that Finzi work. Basically speaking about the beautiful Sylvia and wondering if she is as kind as she is beautiful. Then there's a dark song, Der Wanderer, the Wanderer. This is where there's this wanderer, and he's searching for his happy place. And at the end, he's basically told, it is wherever he is not. So it's pretty cold. And then let's see what else we have. Die Forelle, the Trout. That's the same tune the famous tune that you see in the Trout Quintet. But here you have the text of the fisherman trying to catch the trout. And it sounds a little bit light, whimsical. The final verse of poetry actually originally was talking about how this is an allusion to how young women should avoid the fishermen being the young men trying to seduce them. But Schubert actually omitted this from the song. And then you have a couple of songs that are actually written for soprano. One is Gretchen am Spinnrad, Gretchen at the spinning wheel. And this comes from Goethe's Faust. So it's about the character Gretchen. And this utilizes the piano to depict the spinning of the wheel. And then that's against the angst of Gretchen. So that's a really dramatic piece. By the way, another piece I want to mention that also utilizes the piano in that way is Auf dem Wasser zu singen, to sing on the water. And this one, there's this sort of shimmering, glistening of the waves in the sunlight that is also beautifully depicted by the piano. That's a gorgeous piece. It's sort of a solemn piece, reflective piece about how the waves, it's sort of like the impermanency of it is sort of like the permanence of life, sort of kind of this reflective work. And then finally, another piece I'm going to mention is written for soprano. It actually was a gift that Schubert wrote on his deathbed for a friend of his who was a soprano. Der Hirt auf den Felsen, the Shepherd on the Rock. And this one actually features a clarinet as well as the piano, which kind of adds to the tone of melancholy. As the singer is singing about, again, the topic of longing for love that is so common. Beautifully melodic work for soprano. And then finally, in these song sets, sometimes you get the individual songs from the song cycles, like Winterreise and Die Schöne Müllerin, and especially the fourth song from Schwanengesang, the Ständchen, the Serenade. As I said, one of Schubert's most popular songs in general. Now, the first recommendation I have is, no surprise, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. These were recorded in the late 60s, early 70s with Gerald Moore on Deutsche Grammophon. Fischer-Dieskau was pretty much the acme of Schubert singing, of lieder singing. And that may sound like a backhanded compliment, but it's really not, because it's really amazing, the plethora of just immaculate artistic singing, and just the volume of it, the way he's able to keep it up, it's just really it's really mind-blowing. You can actually get, I think it's like an 18 CD box set of somewhere around like 400 of the individual lieder on this Deutsche Grammophon series. But I'm recommending, if you want to get your feet wet in it, this single disc, which includes most of the popular songs, including the ones I just mentioned, of really dramatic Earl King, wonderful, starkly dramatic Der Wanderer, which he does so well. He's just so good at inhabiting those dramatic emotions, as well as the softer stuff too. With that secure, beautiful high baritone sound, just really gorgeous. So this is the place I would start. I do also want to recommend, sort of as a compliment, this soprano recital from Barbara Bonney from 1994, accompanied by, I think it's Jeffrey Parsons. Yeah, Jeffrey Parsons. And it really complements the Fischer Dieskau well. Bonnie had this angelic sounding sweet tone, so very appropriately she begins with the famous Ave Maria, but also the other softer songs like Du bist die Ruhe is just beautifully tender. And then she's also able to sing with nice energy in a song like Heidenruh's line, as well as the songs that are really specifically written for soprano, like Der Hirt auf dem Felsen, beautifully sung with Bonnie's lyricism, and a wonderfully melancholic version of Gretchen am Spinnrad. So really a gorgeous sounding disc that I would not want to be without either. And another soprano, much earlier but more of a contemporary of Fischer Dieskau, Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, recorded more in her prime. This is from 1952. She just sounds gloriously golden in this recording, accompanied by Edwin Fischer, who was a wonderful Schubert pianist, of course. Unfortunately, it's a little bit short measure. It's only 12 songs. But it starts with maybe my favorite version of An die Musik. Just beautifully phrased. And then, for example, Auf dem Wasser zu singen, I mentioned that shimmery piano part, very delicately played by Fischer. So really the meeting of the minds of two wonderful artists who are just both great in Schubert. And then I want to go back again to Gerard Souzay in this box set. Just that he brings that kind of French chanson quality of the dreaminess and that inward quality. So especially in the softer, more delicate stuff, just really gorgeous. For example, Nacht und Traum, Night and Dreams, very, very delicate and beautiful. But he also does well with the more dramatic songs. Like he has a very intense Doppelganger. Die Liebe hat gelogen. Love Has Lied to Me, a song about betrayal, beautifully an intense version of that as well. So this is really wonderful. Just obviously with the song cycles as well. This is a really invaluable set. And then coming to a newer recording from 1990. What is this? 1994, I believe, or maybe 94 or 95. Bryn Terfel again, with Malcolm Martineau on piano. That virile baritone sound of his, so strong and just wonderful deep tone. He has a wonderful Earl King, a wonderful version of Der Wanderer, where there's that final kind of sad ending. He goes down on the final note to kind of add to the feeling of despondency. Beautiful set of Schubert songs as well. And then I want to go back to this disc of Hans Hodder. This is his Schwanengesang set that includes also a few lieder, which I also think are priceless. Just beautiful, calming solemnity that he brought, especially to the more reflective, softer songs. These are with Gerald Moore from the early 50s. And then as long as we're in that area of recording, I also want to mention Kathleen Ferrier. If I can find which CD this is on. Again, they're kind of spread around with the Decca recordings. At least to see a few of them on here, including a beautiful version of An die Musik, just really poignant and touching, as well as Gretchen am Spinnrad. These are recorded with Phyllis Spur, as well as a few by accompanied by Benjamin Britten as well. Generally late 40s, early 50s. fairly good mono. With Farrier, her voice is so strong that really doesn't matter. And then I want to discuss for Schubert Lieder a couple of the sort of golden age singers, even going earlier, who were actually known more for their opera singing, but then also specialize in Lieder. First of all, Elisabeth Schumann, a soprano who made these recordings in the late 20s and 30s, most of them with Gerald Moore. Again, he was just all over the place. And Schumann, she was known for her opera singing, particularly Rosenkavalier, but a really, really consummate Lieder artist. Beautiful phrasing, just the way she spins those lines. For example, in the slow songs such as Du bist die Ruhe, for example, very, very beautiful. And then the songs that are written for soprano, like Rädchen am Spinnrad and Der Hirt auf dem Felsen, just really gorgeous. To me, just priceless Lieder singing from another age, as well as this recording from Heinrich Schlussnuss, the baritone. These were recorded also from the late 20s up into, I think, like the early 40s. Another singer who was known for his opera, particularly the Verdi baritone roles, so you can imagine a fairly dramatic singer. And he brought that dramatic element to the Lieder. For example, a wonderful version of the Earl King, which is generally a piece that you want to hear in a low voice because there's the different characters that are being depicted. Like Fischer-Dieskau, very dramatic as well as a beautiful tone, but I would say even more of this sort of nervous, frenetic energy and frisson that he brings to it. A very brooding version of the famous Ständchen from Schwanengesang. I believe there's also a doppelganger on here that's really dramatic, accompanied by Franz Rupp and Sebastian Peschko, and sounding pretty good in this prima voce transfer. Again, I've mentioned it before, but they kind of minimize the hiss of these older recordings, and they bring more bloom to the voice. So a really exciting set of Schubert songs as well. All right, not quite done yet with Schubert. I do want to bring special focus and attention to his most famous popular song. You might even argue maybe the most famous song ever written. I'm talking about Ave Maria. And bonus points on the pop quiz if you know Ave Maria's original name. Okay, time's up. It's Ellen's dritte Gesang, Ellen's third song, and that comes from its placement in a 7-song set that is based on a Scottish legend. And there's this character, Ellen, who's the Lady of the Lake, and her third song in the piece is this Ave Maria, this Hail Mary, praying for the well-being of the Scottish tribesmen as they're involved in strife and war. And of course, it's just a beautiful, beautiful lyrical melody, famous for good reason. I never get tired of it. I think it's just gorgeous. And I want to mention just a few versions that most of them are coming from albums that I've already recommended. First of all, this CD I already mentioned with Barbara Bonney. She sings all 3 original German verses. Sounds just beautifully sweet and full as well. Just a gorgeous version with Jeffrey Parsons on piano. Also, I want to mention this one, if I can find it. Let's see. This one from Kathleen Battle's Christmas album. I already mentioned the Gounod Ave Maria earlier. This is with an orchestra that features the harp on those arpeggios. There's that blum 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 blum, that piano part. It actually is meant to depict a harp in the first place. So you have Leonard Slotkin and the St. Luke's Orchestra accompanying her here, and she just sounds beautifully angelic. That sort of soft, fluttering soprano voice above the arpeggios is just gorgeous. Just like Bonnie with the original 3 German verses. Also, a version which features actually more the orchestra, especially the string sound from guess who? Herbert von Karajan and the Vienna Philharmonic from 1961. You got to hear it, right? With Karajan and that lush string sound, it really does sound seductive and gorgeous. And at some point, he allows Linton Price to come in and sing a verse as well. And she sounds gorgeous and full and beautiful. So this is also a version that I think was worth recommending. And this actually comes from Linton Price's own Christmas album. So this is wonderful as well. A couple more versions. One is from the most famous singer probably of the last half century, Luciano Pavarotti. I mentioned from this album his Franck Panis Angelicus earlier. He does a great job of Ave Maria from the same sessions. I think originally it was Oh Holy Night was the album name, with Kurt Adler and the National Philharmonic from 1976. Just beautifully strong and passionate and heartfelt. This is the first version I knew, and I believe he was singing it on the Tonight Show in the 80s. I think that's the first time I ever heard this song. So maybe it's like kind of just locked in my brain. But he just does it so naturally and passionately, and the voice just soars. So you got to hear this version. He does a verse in Latin, the familiar Latin that's been adapted from the German, as well as another verse in Italian. So that's a great one. I also want to recommend, I mentioned her earlier for Lieder. Elizabeth Schumann also has a version from the mid-30s with an unnamed orchestra, again with the harp arpeggios. And this is beautiful just to hear that style, that age-old style of German Lieder, with the immaculate phrasing and her beautiful full tone that she just controls so well. Even though the sound is fairly dim, you hear her voice fairly clearly. And then finally, this is going to be sort of maybe a gratuitous personal choice, but I want to mention one instrumental version. It was actually adaptation for violin by I think it was arranged by someone named Wilhelm. And this is an old recording from 1930 with Branislav Huberman on violin, accompanied by Siegfried Schultz. I love this recording so much, I even put it on my YouTube channel years ago, and it's still there. And it's just so heartfelt and lovingly phrased. I never get tired of this. It comes across fairly clearly, even with the crackles and so on. But I just wanted to throw that in here because I really love this version. Okay, so that's Schubert. Now we come to Robert Schumann, following a few years later and really getting into the heart of Romanticism. And his iconic song cycle I'm going to start with is Dichterliebe, the poet's love. It's about half the length of a typical Schubert cycle. It's about half an hour long, so maybe more digestible in that way. It's a very beautifully lyrical piece, a beautiful piano part as well. If you know anything about Schumann, he's just beautiful colors in the piano. And this is a familiar story again about lost love. Our protagonist starts out very idealistically infatuated, and then at some point things go sour. And that point is the seventh song. It's seventh of the 16. Ich grolle nicht. I'm not bitter. He goes on to say, I saw the darkness in your heart. I saw the snake that feeds upon your heart. I saw how utterly wretched you are. But I'm not bitter. So it gets kind of dark at that point. And then from then on, the cycle is basically just dealing with the emotions of loss until the final song where the poet buries his love in not his actual, the person, but just his feelings of love in a giant coffin. So it's this beautiful imagery throughout the cycle. Now, the poetry was written by Heinrich Heine, a German romantic poet, who you might know for having written the phrase, where man burns books, he eventually burns people. A hauntingly prophetic phrase that is now engraved in the cement at the Babelplatz in Berlin, which is where the infamous book burning occurred a century later. So just quite mind-blowing, really, when you think about that. But wonderful poet and just a beautiful song cycle. My top choice for this one is this French chanson specialist that we've discussed many times already with Lieder, Gerard Souzet, accompanied by Dalton Baldwin in 1960. Very good vintage stereo sound. And again, I go back to that quality of French chanson, this sort of dreamy quality. I think it really goes well, especially with this song cycle. It's a really inward, very, very flexible interpretation. As I said with his Schubert, Souzet really knew how to vary the mood and color the tone differently from song to song. Very, very beautiful, especially in the hushed moments, but also delves into the dramatic emotions as well. So I think an all-around wonderful version of this song cycle. But as with all great works, there's going to be a slew of wonderful recordings, and I have to mention this all-time classic, Fritz Wunderlich, with Hubert Giesen on piano, recorded in 1965. For many of us, including myself, this is probably the first version you knew of this work, and it's a great sales job. Wunderlich just sings with beautiful tone, just gorgeously seductive, very heartfelt too, very passionate. It may not have the inward intensity of Souzet, the sort of the multi-layered interpretation, you might say, but it's just so palpably sung and felt that I would still want this as even a complement to that one. Just an irreplaceable version, and beautifully recorded. Another version from a tenor from around the same time period, from 1963, Peter Pears with his partner Benjamin Britten. Now, you're not going to get the sweet honeyed tone that you get with Wunderlich, but whoever does. But the main selling point is the artistry. It's just from both these artists. It's everything is really just thought through, and the drama and the poignant sections as well. It's really stretched out. It's sort of a romantic version of what is a very proverbial romantic work, wonderfully recorded as well. So this is one I would not want to be without either. And then we come to a newer version from 2004, baritone Christian Gehaar. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, with Gerald Huber on piano. A little bit more of a reserved version, very artistically intelligent and probing, especially at the more hushed sections. Just really gorgeous. He really utilizes his tone to portray the emotions in a more sort of you might say eloquent way, not as sort of hit you over the head with it, and beautiful sounding as well. So this is one I would also not want to be without. More on the other side of the spectrum is Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, where you get more of the palpable dramatic emotions. But in this earlier recording, I think he reins it in a little bit better. This is from 1957 with Jörg Demus. And as always, there's that consummate artistry and that bedrock of beautiful tone. But then he also brings that dramatic inflection. Ich grolle nicht, the song number 7, very dramatically, intensely done, as well as the rest of the cycle where he's expressing the various emotions of forlornness of the poet. Very, very beautiful. Incidentally, this set, which I've already recommended many times for other repertoire, it includes another set of songs by Schumann, the 12 Gedichte, the 12 poems, also known as the Kerner Lieder, after the poet. That's a beautiful lyrical set of songs that he does beautifully as well. It really suits his voice well, the high stuff especially. The way he hits those high baritone notes up in the stratosphere at times, but does it with nice support and control. It's just really, really gorgeous. Okay. That's Fischer Dieskau. Now a few of the proverbial historic recordings, i.e. pre-stereo. First of all, another tenor like Wunderlich, known for his honeyed seductive tone, Axel Schütz. This is from 1946 with Gerald Moore. A little bit fuzzy in sound, but the voice comes through. This cycle just sounds tailor-made for Schütz. He's got that just earnest expressiveness, very very heartfelt, just beautifully delves into the different emotions of the work, and this gorgeous tone as well. So this is one I would not want to be without. Another pre-stereo singer that I've mentioned a lot already, the German leader specialist Gerhard Hösch. Again with Hans Udo Müller on piano. This was recorded in, I believe it was 1936. Just consummate artistry. He had that rich, that thick baritone sound, kind of an operatic sound, but infused with emotion. Very intense. His Igrola nicht, for example, is very intense. And for example, number 13, Ich hab ihn Traum geweinet. I dreamed you were dear to me. Very, very intense from Hösch in this. So that's an interpretation I would not want to be without either, despite the limited sound. And then finally, a classic version that I alluded to earlier in the discussion of Fauré song cycles, Charles Ponzera. We come full circle, back again to another chanson specialist. This, by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this with the Fauré, but this is from those Dutton transfers that are really great, especially if you are not keen on historical recordings generally. They do a great job of cleaning them up, so they're very, very listenable, especially on vocal repertoire. Ponzera is accompanied here by Alfred Cortot, the noted Schumann specialist. And so you have these two romantic spirits that really give this the romantic treatment, the variety of colors and expression. Some of the songs taken actually quite quickly, more than we're used to these days. So you might even be a little bit idiosyncratic to the modern ear, but again, this is romantic expression of romantic repertoire. So it really suits it, and above all, it's that sort of wistful, dreamy. Character and tone that he brings to the work that they both do really, that I think makes this an irreplaceable recording as well. And again, fairly cleaned up in the Dutton transfer. I do want to, before I leave Deutschliebe, mention this guy. He's this Zilke guy. This was actually a CD that was available for a time here in my hometown of Austin, Texas at Waterloo Records. I recorded this recital back in 2008, and the centerpiece is the Dichterliebe. It's on YouTube. I won't say anything more about it other than if you want to go there and leave your own review, feel free to do so. All right. So now let's move to the cycle that Schumann wrote specifically for the woman's voice, Frauenlieb und Leben, a woman's love and life. And this is a really rare thing, right? To hear specifically from a woman's viewpoint. That's the good news. The bad news is the poetry was actually written by a man. So it actually is more reflective of, especially in the 19th century viewpoint of how a man interpreted a woman, basically more kind of serving her husband. But still, they tried. And it is a very beautiful work, very tender. For example, it talks about the unique special emotion of a love for a child. The sixth song is very beautiful, Süße Freund, sweet friend. It's a very beautiful work, and also a vehicle for female singers to show their stuff. And my top choice for this one, I alluded to it a little earlier with reference to some of the couplings, is this one from Kathleen Ferrier with John Newmark on piano from 1950. Mono sound, but you hear her voice clearly, and it's just such a beautifully poignant version. Very tender, beautiful phrasing, the range of dynamics, the range of expression, the way she's able to control that large contralto voice. It's like a masterclass. And actually, for me, I do think of her as my one of my teachers. Actually, the day of my master's recital, I was just a nervous wreck, and I was so worried. And I actually put Ferrier on and listened to her and gathered inspiration from that. And from that, I just thought, okay, don't worry about technique, don't worry about any of that stuff. Just put the meaning of the piece first, and that did help me. I went and sang my heart out. So thank you, Miss Ferrier. But anyways, getting back to this, just a gorgeous version, despite the mono sound. If you do want a little bit cleaner sound, we have that other great alto, English alto, Janet Baker. This again is I alluded to with some of the couplings as well. This is with Martin Issip on piano, recorded in 1965, and Baker brings that warmth and sort of that dignified tone that she brought, very, very tender and beautiful. Another beautiful version of these works, and then finally, a much older version from Lotte Lehmann. An opera singer known for Wagner as well as Richard Strauss, but also a leader specialist. Like Kirsten Flagstad, she had a large voice that she was also able to control in the realm of song. And this is just a gorgeous version from 1942 with Bruno Walter on piano, playing very musically. Just gorgeously phrased with a beautiful, rich tone. The sound is a little bit noisy, but her voice comes through. It also includes some other Schubert songs, including Widmung, which, by the way, Ferrier does a great version of that too. It means devotion, basically a rapturous love. And then also Du bist wie eine Blume. You are like a flower, beautifully phrased by Lehmann. When I listen to Lehmann, I think she makes me think of Elizabeth Schwarzkopf too, and I imagine that Schwarzkopf probably got some inspiration from being in that same era from Lehmann. Incidentally, fun fact, it was Lotte Lehmann, believe it or not, who discovered the Von Trapp family singers of Sound of Music fame. The story is that she overheard them in Salzburg singing from their garden, and convinced Captain von Trapp to put them in the Salzburg Festival. So, interesting story about Lotte Lehmann. All right, so that's Frauenlieb. I have one more song cycle, or actually a couple of song cycles to discuss with Schumann, and that is his Liederkreis, which is actually just a generic term for song cycle. The most famous is the Opus 39, also known as the Eichendorff cycle after the poet. And then there's the Opus 24, which is the Heine cycle after the poet Heinrich Heine. The Eichendorff cycle is sort of about the marriage of nature and love, very evocative and beautiful. For example, maybe Schumann's most popular individual song, Mondnacht, Moonlit Night. It's this gorgeously delicate song. And then the final song, Frühlingsnacht, Night of Spring, which is really happy, full of energy. Can't quite say the same about the Heine cycle. The Heine cycle it's kind of like the Dichterliebe cycle. It's basically losing at love. So it's a little bit more despondent. For these cycles, I recommend Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. These are mid-50s recordings with Gerald Moore for the Opus 39 and Herta Klust for the Opus 24. And this is just gorgeous, especially the Eichendorff cycle, the Opus 39. Just a wonderful job of expressing the different emotions, the different moods. He was in his most sort of like raw beauty of tone in the mid 50s, just beautifully nuanced but also dramatic. Mondnacht is done just gorgeously. I'm tempted to say this is my favorite Fischer-Dieskau recording, which is saying a lot, given how much he recorded. It definitely should be up there. And then the Heinz cycle, he just like with the Dichterliebe, he does that very dramatically as well. So an excellent coupling. And actually, that is Schumann. And now we're getting closer to the end, we come to Richard Strauss, who really was a wonderful leader, composer as well. Especially had this kind of lush, caressing quality. He was married to a soprano, so that's probably helps explain why soprano is so featured in his songs, not to mention his operas. And he wrote one of the most gorgeous song cycles out there for soprano and orchestra. The Four Last Songs, Vier Ernste Lieder. These are just gorgeously lush. It's, again, about the subject of confronting death. But it's done in a very comforting, consoling way. There's an allusion to the passing of seasons. And then finally you get to the final song, Im Abendrot, which means at sunset, and which is the longest of the songs and just really ethereal and gorgeous. Strauss wrote this at the very end of his life. And orchestrated as well. And if you know anything about Strauss, he was a brilliant orchestrator. So you get the marriage of the voice and the orchestral writing. And my top recommendation for this one is a classic that I mentioned in my reference versions, Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, the one from 1965 with George Zell and the Berlin Radio Symphony Orchestra. First of all, wonderful recording quality, very detailed, very full. And Schwarzkopf sings these songs with beautiful sensuousness and caressing phrasing. That I think that's why she's so associated with it. Just beautiful tone. And then Zell was a wonderful Strauss conductor. Does a wonderful accompaniment to Im Abendrot. Is just gorgeous, just beautifully ethereal. So that's my top choice. I do also want to mention her earlier recording with Otto Ackermann and the Philharmonia, recorded in 1953. Obviously not as atmospheric with the sound quality, but you do get Schwarzkopf in fresher voice. She brings forth the emotions maybe a little bit more, even if you don't quite have the ethereal quality that you have, especially not with the orchestral accompaniment you got with Zell, but still beautiful to hear Schwarzkopf in this recording. Another version I want to recommend is from 1982, Lucia Popp. Another singer who really did a great job of the phrasing, just really heartfelt and beautiful the way she does it, with ravishing tone. Even though she has a somewhat lighter voice, in the louder parts it comes off strongly enough. Very sensitively accompanied by Klaus Tenstedt and the London Symphony. And very well recorded. So this is also a gorgeous version. Another version from around the same time, in fact the same year, 1982, another famous version, Jesse Norman, with Kurt Masur and the Leipziger Gewandhaus. Just beautifully luscious. The gorgeous tone that Norman possessed, beautifully recorded. The Im Abendrot is gorgeous. It's really lengthened to its max and beautifully sustained by Norman. I don't know how she did it, but it's just really poignant. And so this is also a classic. Another wonderful sounding version is this one, conducted by Herbert von Karajan with the Berlin Philharmonic, featuring Gundula Janowitz in the soprano solo, recorded in 1973, sounding just wonderful. In fact, you really can't beat this in terms of just the sheer sound of it. She's not quite as expressive a soloist as, like, say, Schwarzkopf or Lucia Popp. I don't know if that was partly from Karajan. He tended to sort of dominate singers a little bit with his orchestral sound, but there's a purity to it that is beautiful on its own terms, in sort of just relishing in the beauty of the sound of the work. And then Karajan, of course, maybe the greatest Strauss conductor of whom we have record. And in addition to that, you have two of the greatest orchestral recordings, I believe, of Strauss on record. The early 70s recordings of Tod und Verklärung, Death and Transfiguration, and Metamorphosen. So a priceless disc in any way you cut it. Now, a few mono versions. One is from 1953 with Lisa della Casa, with Carl Böhm and the Vienna Philharmonic. And this one, mainly, I would say, is for Della Casa. She sings it so beautifully, the caressing lines and gorgeous full tone. She was also a noted opera singer, incidentally, just like Schwarzkopf. Böhm's tempos are a little bit on the faster side, and that plus the dimmer sound, it makes it not quite as atmospheric in terms of the orchestral contribution. But at least for Della Casa, I would still say this is a version you're going to want to hear. Now, another version from a couple of years earlier that's actually live and not quite as good sound is this one, Sene Jorinak, with Fritz Busch and the Stockholm Philharmonic. It is a little bit more dim sounding, but you do hear the voice more strongly. The orchestra is a lot more dim, which is a shame because they play very passionately. And Jorinak is just gorgeous. Very heartfelt, very natural in her phrasing. Listen to the way she sings the end of September, the way she caresses the lines. So even with the dim sound, I would say this is one of those historic choices where if you can get over that, it's just wonderful musicianship. Now, for the truly brave, speaking of getting over bad sound, we have the premiere recording from 1950 with Kirsten Flagstad, who was basically Strauss's deathbed wish. It was that he wanted Flagstad to premiere the work, which she does, with the Philharmonia conducted by Wilhelm Furtwängler, another great Strauss conductor. Unfortunately, the sound is dismal. Even for me, someone who generally can deal with that, this is really, really hard sledding. It is a beautiful performance, very poignant from both artists, very, very moving. And if anybody can overcome terrible sound, it's Flagstad, that voice. I don't know, maybe AI can someday do something about this and recreate it in a clean reproduction, who knows, but it's still a great performance. It's just, yes, you have to deal with just terrible sound. All right, so that's the four last songs. I also want to mention Strauss's Lieder, which are similarly mainly for soprano, very caressing and lyrical. There's, for example, Morgen, which is Morning. Very sweet song with a delicate accompaniment about we'll be reunited someday. Also Allersehen, which is All Souls Day, which is what it translates to, and it's about remembering past loves. It's another kind of tender, nostalgic song as well. Then there's also a couple of more energetic ones, like Zeugnung, which is devotion, just really passionate love, even saying thank you after each verse to your love. So almost kind of like a spiritual devotion to your love. And then Strauss's own serenade, Ständchen, which is also about rapturous love and very energetic in both the vocal and the piano part. If you're getting to know Strauss's individual leader, my top recommendation is this recital from 1989 with Barbara Bonney and Jeffrey Parsons. Bonney possesses just that sweet sound, very seductive and beautiful, but also with the fullness to it that really works well on these songs. Listen to the way she caresses Morgan, for example. And the extra bonus is this comes with an excellent survey of some Wolf songs as well, Hugo Wolf. So we'll be mentioning that a little bit later. So this is a wonderful disc. And then I just have to mention as well the songs, not surprisingly, were also often orchestrated, even by Strauss himself. Like, for example, Morgan, with a delicate accompaniment, he adds a flute I believe it's a flute and a cello. I may be remembering that wrong, but might even be just a violin. I don't know. Something. Anyways, I remember. I think it's a harp and a violin, I believe. Anyways, it really adds to the delicate beauty of the song. So you get in the, if I can find it again, the Schwarzkopf Four Last Songs with Zell. You get several songs as well. So you get, for example, that version of Morgan with the orchestration, beautifully caressed and phrased by Schwarzkopf. And you also get that with Norman, Jesse Norman and Kurt Masur. It's nice to hear that large voice in a rapturous song like Zeugnung, for example, but also very poignant and stretching out the tempos just as she does in Abendrot, being able to just keep that beautiful tone flowing. So this is also wonderful. And then finally, I want to mention, again, we talked about how Strauss wanted Flagset for the four last songs. Here she is in, ironically, better sound, even though it's recorded earlier, from the late 30s, especially in these wonderful prima voce remasterings. Just a couple of songs, but includes a wonderful version of Allerseelen. Just that gorgeous tone. Strauss knew what he was thinking in wanting Strauss for his songs. She just had that gorgeous fullness to her voice and wonderful artistry. So I want to mention that as well. Okay, so that's Richard Strauss. Now we come to Ralph Vaughan Williams. He wrote a set of songs for tenor and string orchestra, evoking the English countryside, called On Wenlock Edge. And actually, let me correct myself. That's actually tenor, piano, and string quartet, actually. And it's beautifully evocative. One of the most famous songs is Bread Hill, where it starts with like a sunny day, and then it ends with these tolling bells. And my top recommendation for this is this 1970 recording with tenor Ian Partridge and the Music Group of London, sounding very good stereo. And Partridge has this high tenor sound, very light but also expressive, and just does a wonderful job of evoking the various moods, particularly in those moments of stillness. And then you get the beautiful string sound as well from the Music Group of London. So that's an excellent version. And then I also want to mention from Vaughan Williams the Songs of Travel from this beautiful recital I mentioned earlier from Bryn Terfel, which is entitled The Vagabond, which is the first song of this set of 9 songs. It's a song cycle that evokes familiar themes of thoughts on love and life, but it does it in a sort of a less gloomy way than a lot of the German song cycles, for example. It's more of a contemplative, reflective set of songs, and Terfel, it just sounds like these were composed for him. He just brings that nobility and strength, and that beautiful, rich tone. I remember The Vagabond, actually, from high school when I was, again, the solo and ensemble contest, and he brings that virility to it, just that strength. It's just gorgeous. All right, so that's Vaughan Williams. Now I want to mention Villa-Lobos, Heitor Villa-Lobos, Brazilian composer of the early 20th century, who collected Brazilian folk songs and melded them with Bach and created this set of pieces called the Bachianas Brasileiras. And the fifth one is the most popular one. That's the one that features a vocalist. It's not that long. It's two movements. The aria is sort of this slower version where she's just kind of floating around with 8 cellos, doing this sort of pizzicata thing. Really beautiful. And then you have this more animated dance then that it ends with, which evoking Brazilian birds. And I want to go back again to this recording I keep mentioning from Anna Moffo with Leopold Stokowski and the American Symphony, recorded in 1964. Just a gorgeous version, very seductive. In its flexibility, ravishing tone from Moffo, and beautiful sound. Just a lovely, lovely version, well recorded, and coming with the Rachmaninoff vocalises and the Canteloube songs that I mentioned earlier. So just a really wonderful disc. All right, so that's Villa-Lobos. Now a work from Vivaldi, a Stabat Mater setting. As I mentioned with Pergolesi, this is depicting the grief of the Virgin Mary at the crucifixion. This is written for a high alto voice, an alto voice or a high tenor or even a castrata, and with a string orchestra. Very ethereal work, very, very solemn, but beautiful and eloquent in that Baroque Vivaldi way. And my top choice for this one is a wonderful version from 1995 with countertenor Andreas Scholl. This is just a perfect work for Scholl. He sings with that beautiful bell-like tone, really gorgeously controlled, and this wonderful sweetness to it, but sings with poignancy and solemnity. And he's accompanied by Chiara Banchini and the Ensemble 415, so a period group that is very stylish and also very beautifully recorded. So a wonderful, wonderful recording. All right, so we're getting close to the end now. Now we're to the W's, and I want to mention a set of songs by Wagner, the 5 Wesendonck Lieder. Wesendonck was a female poet who Wagner had a thing for. In fact, his first wife accused her of breaking up their marriage, even though there's no evidence that they ever crossed those lines. But this was a period of time when he was working on the Ring Cycle, and he put that aside and started working on Tristan und Isolde. So love was on his mind, and you actually hear the beginnings of the love duet in the final song, Träume, Dreams. That material very obviously is what he then used in the Act 2 love duet in Tristan und Isolde. It's a really beautiful song cycle with that rich chromatic writing of Wagner's, very dreamy sounding. I would even say if you find Wagner's operas to be daunting in their length, this might be a good place to try out Wagner. It's about 20 minutes. So it's really rich with his chromatic writing. So not a bad place to start, actually, especially in a recording like this, even though it's rather old, with Kirsten Flagstad, who was the Wagner soprano, and the Isolde for that matter. It is recorded in 1948, so there's a little bit of surface noise, but her huge voice comes through those speakers with the consummate accompanist Gerald Moore. And it's just gorgeous, that big, beautiful tone flowing and caressing, and she was just such a natural with Wagner, the way she handled the shifting chords and the chromaticism. So even with the sound quality, in fact, even with the fact that she did do a later version with Hans Knappertsbusch. I think it was with the Vienna Philharmonic in the mid-50s. Her voice was so much better, I think, here that I would recommend this first. All right, so now we come to another in the line of the great German lieder composers. This one was a little bit later in the 19th century. Hugo Wolf, who actually modeled himself after Wagner and Wagner's chromaticism, the shifting chords. He was very prolific. Next to Schubert, he might have been the most prolific of the German lieder composers. So it's a little bit daunting getting into Wolf for the first time. My first recommendation would be this lieder recital I mentioned earlier of Barbara Bonney's from the mid-90s with Jeffrey Parsons on piano. 1989, I believe, is the date, with some Strauss selections. So this includes some Wolf songs and Bonney's radiant, beautiful, sweet tone. Really does a good job of selling these works. In fact, the shifting chords, it actually the smoothness of her tone actually helps with that. For example, the beautiful way she sings Verschwiegene Liebe, Secret Love. That was one of the songs that were based on poems from Edward Merica. Just beautifully done by Bonney on this recital. I do also, however, want to mention an older recital from this consummate Wolfian, Elizabeth Schwarzkopf. This is when she was especially in prime voice, 1953. It's a live recital from Salzburg, and she just sounds gorgeous. The sound is actually not bad. It's fairly clear for a live recital. Just sounding beautiful, and as we'll talk more about Schwarzkopf and Wolf, but his songs really they did well with people who put a lot of emphasis on the text and the meaning, which Schwarzkopf definitely did. And then you have on piano, guess who? Wilhelm Furtwängler. Someone who knew something about late Romantic German chromaticism. So you have these two artists who are very simpatico, and it's very touching at times. Just wonderful depth from both of them. So another recital that should sell you on Wolf. And then we have, I mentioned Edward Merica. We have this collection of Merica lieder from the other singer who is really indelibly associated with Hugo Wolf, Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau. In fact, again, it's saying a lot, but I would consider this one of his crowning achievements. I mean, he's just born to sing these songs. He brings the dramatic element, the beautiful tone, being able to shift color and shift emotions. And it was recorded in the late 50s with Gerald Moore, so he's in absolute prime voice. For example, Lebewohl is one of those dramatic, intense Merica lieder where the poet is just despondently saying goodbye. Just lots of varying moods in both in the poetry and the musical writing. Really rich stuff, and you get most of them here. I think there was like 53 in all of the Merica lieder, and here you get I think somewhere like 40 or so. So really great set. And then finally, before I leave Wolf, I want to mention these songs for a soprano and baritone. And we get this real treat of Elizabeth Schwarzkopf and Dietrich Fischer-Dieskau, recorded in the mid-60s with Gerald Moore accompanying. These are two sets of, the first one is, this is the Italian Liederbuch, and this is the Spanish Liederbuch. In both cases, basically German translations of poetry from either Italian or Spanish poetry. The Italian, they tend to be a little bit shorter songs on themes of love. and you have alternating between the soprano and the baritone. And actually you get kind of two sides of loves, which is a little bit unique from the male and the female perspective. And then the Spanish leader book, it starts out, it's actually split into two. At the beginning is a set of songs that are on, it's more spiritual themes. And with that chromatic writing, that adds an element of reflection and searching, which is really beautiful. And then something quite different. And then in the second set, it's really more about rapturous, almost sensuous love. It gets really heated, actually, very dramatic, and at times actually playful as well. So quite a variety of themes, and it suits Wolf's music, which shifts around chromatically, and these two are just at the top of their game. The beautiful tone from both, wonderful artistry, and especially the attention and the commitment to the text and the meaning, and Gerald Moore on top of that. These are both just real classic vocal recordings. All right, we are almost completely done. I want to visit one topic before I end, and that is English songs. I already mentioned this disc earlier. So you get song cycles from Vaughan Williams and Finzi. You also get songs from a couple of other English composers, John Ireland and George Butterworth. This is, of course, with Bryn Terfel, again, from the mid-90s with Malcolm Martineau on piano. And the music is generally speaking, very, very evocative, atmospheric, and just really powerfully sung by Bryn Terfel. Again, this is just a classic recording of vocal repertoire. And then I want to mention Kathleen Ferrier, who was just made to sing these traditional English songs. A lot of them unaccompanied, but you also have Phyllis Spur and John Newmark, again, late 40s, early 50s. One of the classics of all classics is the short, unaccompanied Blow the Wind Southerly. It's just so beautiful. Her phrasing, just the way she's able to control her voice, it's just heart-melting. And all these songs is just very much in her wheelhouse. And aside from the immaculate phrasing, and the deep, rich tone and the control, it's the humanity that she brought to everything she sang. So a real classic set of songs. And then also this from a little bit earlier, from the 30s, Irish Songs and Ballads, or this disc is called Songs of My Heart, from the Irish tenor John McCormack, which also features, again, Gerald Moore on piano. And it's just what it says, Songs of His Heart. McCormack had an operatic, he was very famous for his opera recordings as well. But here, he just sounds so in character. It's just so idiomatic. One of the most famous, of course, is Down by the Sally Gardens. Yes, it's old sound. It's a little bit of crackles and hiss. But this is just irreplaceable stuff from the horse's mouth, really, of traditional Irish singing. So wanted to mention this one as well. All right, that is it. Solo vocal. I'm so glad to finally get into vocal repertoire. We still have choral and opera to go. But I hope you enjoyed it. And I want to wish you all a great day and happy listening.